everyone. My name is Allison Jachnowitz, and I'm the Senior Associate Dean here at SPA, and I'm very pleased to welcome you to our Fall Preview Day. We are so excited to have you join us to learn more about our programs. And first, to kick off, I'd like to introduce you to our Dean, Dean Becky Wilkins, and she is also a faculty member in the Department of Public Administration and Policy. Prior to her time here at SPA, she was a faculty member at the University of Georgia. And she also is in the classroom, and so you may see her teaching human resource management or our public administration capstone. She also runs a fantastic book club, and so you'll hear a bit about that. So I'm going to turn it over to Vicki.
Thank you, Allison. Thanks so much, and welcome everyone. Let me add my welcome to all of you and just say how glad we are and grateful we are to have you with us today. It is such an exciting time here in DC and to be part of the School of Public Affairs and just to know our path forward, even in uncertain times, to really know and feel the community we have and how we have decided that together we will move forward and that we will make sure that our students progress and have the best educational experience. We realize that now is not the time to step back. Now is not the time to take a gap in your education, but it's full steam ahead to meet the challenges that we have in this country. And we feel that we can train you and prepare you to do that best. So thanks for being with us today. I wanted to take a little bit of time and just reflect on this week, which has been truly, well, a sleepless week, but a historic week in so many ways. Regardless of the outcome, which we're starting to get a clearer picture of, I just want to highlight a few things about our relationship with the election here in SPA. And we do so many great things as a school and prepare our students to go out and work in campaigns and run for office and be part of the political and policy process. And, we had a great win this week by one of our alumna. Sarah McBride was elected to the Delaware Senate. She is the first openly trans person to serve in a state Senate, making her the highest ranking trans lawmaker in the country. And we're just so proud of Sarah. She spends a lot of time with us and gives back to us and could not be happier for her. At the same time, Haley Stevens, another graduate of SPA, was reelected to the Michigan 11th. And we're just so proud of them and the work that they're doing and their, involvement in the process. We also take great pride, and I was just sharing with in the green room with everyone how proud I am that Stacey Abrams stood on a stage at American University just a few years ago with people questioning, would she be somebody's vice president, why she didn't run for Senate, how would she overcome the loss of the governorship in Georgia. And she said it there, and you can go back and hear it, but I'm paraphrasing, but she said, I got plans and just watch me. And I think now we see what those plans meant and how she truly has changed an entire country through her perseverance and just knowledge and skills. And so that's an important thing. I think about that a lot this week. But I also think a lot about all of our students who are out in the process right now. I have the good fortune of being in the classroom right now and watching my students do all the GOTV events, watching them working on campaigns, watching them working on Capitol Hill. And it's just such a proud moment for us to see that SPA really is a place where you can come and get an education, but also immediately start to be involved in the things that are likely your passion and where you want to have purpose in your life. So I wanted to start with that. I also wanted to highlight that we know these are challenging times, and I want to recognize that many of you probably are joining this call having hoped to be in person. It's a beautiful day in DC. We would love to have you on campus with us. Or you're facing real challenges, maybe economically or health-wise with yourself or with family members. And I just want to say that we see you, and we really are working to make sure our students, as they come into the program, as they work through the program, and our alums, that we're staying in touch and we're keeping an eye on each other, and we understand the challenges you might be facing, and just want to be a resource for you going forward. So please let us do that and stay in touch with us so we can be helpful. As you know, we recently released our spring plan. I'll be honest, I was hoping for more face-to-face experiences in the spring. I know that the health and safety of our community is job one for all of us. And I think we've made very good decisions on how to do things wisely and move forward, though, and get us back together in the ways we enjoy so much. And so what you see is a spring that was planned around the fact that we understand some students will want to be in person while others will want to remain online to be safe and to keep their loved ones safe. And so most of our 3-credit standard course schedule will remain in a virtual format, but we've really taken great strides to up how we can be in person beyond that. We will have one 3-credit class in person because of the commitment we made to making sure our international students could be part of our community and get to the US and visa requirements we needed to meet for them. But we also have planned our SAMI, our suite of SPA Analytical and Management Institute, we call it SAMI courses. And several of those, including one I'm excited about teaching in April, are going to be face-to-face. So there'll be those chances to get in. You'll learn more about SAMI this afternoon. I think Heather's going to share that with you. It's a great chance. We really, as a school, made a huge commitment, I guess about 2 years ago, maybe close to 3 now, to say we understand that we teach you so much important material and theories and application in the classroom, but we can go beyond that and offer these skills institutes. And so that was a place where we really wanted to expand and say, and we can do it in person. And so you have those opportunities coming up, and keep an eye on them because they will grow and change as the semester goes along, but it's a commitment from us to do that. Also, other extracurricular events. My book club will be coming back face-to-face in the spring. Hopefully by March, we'll be meeting in person again, hopefully in my house, although I'm not sure I have a socially distanced large enough house, but we will get back together again to discuss great books. We have other activities planned. There's a Changemaker series going on that's geared towards undergrads, but you could probably sneak into some if you want. And we have great events always happening. So we're excited about the spring. We're looking forward to summer and what our ramp up continues to get us back together, and hoping for a fall that is, really struck with, great health for everyone and a vaccine in ways that been like me, not sleeping much this week. You logged on, you want to learn about us, that it's a privilege to have you here learning about our school, and I thank you for that. And just want to let you know that I'm available if you ever have questions about the programs or anything. But thank you again, and enjoy your day.
Thank you, Vicki. We appreciate you being with us here today. I'm now going to quickly turn it over to Assistant Dean Jennifer Forney, who I know most of you know, and she is going to tell you a little bit about your day.
Right. I think I'm unmuted. I got it. Okay, welcome, everybody. Again, we are so glad that you're joining us, and we have a full day. I spent a lot of the morning going through your questions. I know many of you put things in the registration platform that you were hoping to learn today, and I'm very confident that the agenda that we have in store will answer many of those questions. But don't be shy. We welcome your questions at any point during the day in the chat box, and of course after, if you wish to follow up. So I talk a lot about structuring these events where we're focused on the things that are very important in vetting graduate programs. And the first metric, of course, and most important, are our academic programs. So we're going to lead off today with Dr. Jachnowitz and the Director of Academic Affairs, Heather Hamilton, who are going to talk about some distinctive opportunities available related to our academic programs. And then you all know that you have an optional chance later today to jump in and learn more about your individual degree programs with faculty program directors and graduate advisors. From there, we're going to move into the next metric, ROI, as I call it, return on investment, professional development. And I have the privilege to share a bit about SPA's professional development strategy. And of course, welcome your questions about that. We take it very seriously. We understand that's an important piece to your training. Next, we're going to move into what's most important, you, students. So we'll have a really robust panel of current students join you. I'll be joined by our Assistant Director of Graduate Recruitment, who is going to help me with the student panel and of course entertain all of your questions. A very exciting and timely conversation will happen then at 1 o'clock. Chris Edelson, I'm sure you've seen the agenda, will join us. And of course, the topic that he'll be speaking on, I cannot think of a more salient topic considering the time and the landscape that we're in this week. And of course, we'll wrap up with that all-important subject, and we know it weighs heavy on your minds, how to finance a graduate education. So we'll talk a bit about SBA's Merit Aid allocation strategy. We're quite transparent about how we approach that process. And of course, we'll answer your questions in regard to that, regarding process and of course, timeline. And again, as I mentioned, you'll have the option to stay on even after that and learn more about your individual degree programs. So full day, I know it's going to wear you out, but we think it's jam-packed full of valuable information. All right, our time is yours today. Thank you so much again. And I'm going to turn it back over, as I mentioned, to Allison and Heather.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jennifer. So I just want to make sure, can everyone give me a thumbs up that you can see my screen and the slides? Okay, so I'm going to talk a bit about SPA degree program highlights, and I'm happy to answer questions at the end of our presentation. Okay, so SPA is made up of 3 departments. We have the Department of Government, Public Administration and Policy, and Justice, Law, and Criminology. And I mention this is because even though your program will have a departmental home, as being an SPA student, you have access to all the faculty in SPA and all of the classes in SPA. And so that's something that's unique about this School of Public Affairs. It's not just government or not just public administration and policy, but you have access to all of these 3 departments and their faculty. We also have 12 research centers that are doing very exciting and timely work. And as students at SPA, you'll have different ways to interact with these research centers. For example, you can be an attendee at one of their events. You potentially could be a GA for one of the centers. The centers are also offering classes and trainings that you could attend. So there's a lot of different ways to get involved with the centers of interest to you. We have many different types of degree programs here at SPA, and you probably know which ones that you're interested in. But I just want to highlight a couple of things for you. We have our traditional programs, master's programs, but we also have dual programs. So you can get a JD with some of our master's programs, and we also have combined programs for BA students who also want to get a master's. And I'm mentioning this to you because you'll not just be with students in your degree program, but you'll be with students across SPA, and that could include students in the law school and students also getting their bachelor's degree. We do have a key executive MPA program. And this is for students who have been in the federal workforce for a while and are looking for promotion to the SES. And the great thing about this program is these students are often very eager to mentor students in our more traditional programs. And then finally, we have 3 PhD programs. And the great thing for you all about having these PhD programs is that you will get to network, to talk to the PhD students. If you're interested in a PhD program, you might get to see what one looks like up front. You might get to take a PhD class. And so we definitely have master's students who are interested in transitioning to PhD and learning more about PhD programs through our students and through our programs that we have. So that's another resource for you. So now I want to transition a little bit and tell you a little bit about the characteristics of an SPA classroom. And this is information that you may not get, just from reading the internet or reading our materials. One is we really focus for our master students on having nighttime and weekend classes. And so that this will allow you to work during the day or do an internship during the day and free up your time during regular work hours. And so we really try to make sure that our classes are offered either on weekdays at either 5:30 p.m. or 8:10 p.m. And then we have many classes that are just weekend only classes. We have very small class sizes. And so we really focus on keeping our class sizes small so that we can have good discussions in our classes and also that you can have good interaction with your faculty members. I think our faculty are first rate. We have 3 faculty right now that are currently journal editors. So we house the Journal of Policy Analysis and Management in SPA with Erdal Tekin as the editor, which is, this is commonly viewed as the top policy analysis journal. We also house Political Analysis in SPA with Jeff Gill as the editor. And we're just about to bring on a new nonprofit journal, and Lewis Falk is going to be the editor. Because of our location and because of our faculty connections, we have great guest speakers coming into the class. And we've actually found that being online has increased our guest speaking opportunities and abilities to bring people in. I know one class this fall recently just had Paul Ryan come in as a guest speaker. And then finally, I know that because of these master's programs, do a really great job of combining theory and practice, you'll get a lot of practical assignments. And I can give an example. The statistics class that I'm currently teaching for MPP students, our main assignment is a policy memo. They have to use data and write a 4-page policy memo to a policymaker that would be interested in the analysis. But in all of our classes, you'll see assignments like that. Whether it's writing testimony or writing a blog or doing some data collection or doing interviews, we really try and make sure that you do practical assignments that will help you on the job. So we also provide strong support for your in-classroom learning. We believe our faculty are extremely accessible, available to meet with students during office hours, out of office hours, and really support your learning objectives. All of our programs have academic advisors, and if you go to the optional sessions later today, you'll meet with the academic advisors, and they're there to help you plan your program of study, but also make sure that you have access to AU's resources that you need, whether it's the academic support center, the counseling center, they will make sure that you have those resources. For some of our classes that are viewed as more difficult, we do have tutors available for these classes. So this might be like the statistics program classes or the economics classes. So we do realize that some students need some extra support, and we are happy to provide it. The university also has strong training in terms of software and library and study skills. So different agencies or offices on campus offer software, library, and study skills support. So if you're interested in learning Stata or SPSS or SAS or GIS or R, there are classes that you can take outside of your regular coursework to supplement these skills. We have a lot of support services available throughout campus. And part, as I mentioned, of the academic advisor's job is to help you connect to those services. But we provide services on helping you learn, helping you do your studies, but also services that you might need to facilitate being successful in your program. So that might be counseling services. And then also something that I think is really important, but often goes unmentioned, is that I believe the students here provide a great peer network for each other. It's a very collegial environment. The students work together, they study together, they really support each other. And so that's another support for you for in-classroom learning. We also provide a lot of support in terms of out of classroom learning. So if you start in the fall, we have a program in June called Jumpstart. It's a 2-day program to help you get ready for your program and your new career. So it includes some professional development, a sample SAMI, but also gets you connected to offices and groups on campus. Also, several of our master's programs have boot camps to help you get ready for your studies. There are tons of events and seminars on campus to improve your learning or increase your learning outside of the classroom. All of the research centers that I mentioned on the previous slide have events. All of the departments have research seminar series that you're invited to. We have a graduate student newsletter that goes out every Saturday morning. And these events and seminars are all listed in that newsletter so that you can pick and choose what you're interested in attending. We also have a graduate student run journal called the Public Purpose Journal. The students act as the editor, the editorial board, the writers, and they put together some great material. And this is something that you can get involved in outside of the classroom. Also, many of our students are doing internships out in DC or in other locations, and also acting as graduate assistantships to faculty and to the centers on campus. And so those are some opportunities for learning outside of the classroom. And then finally, as Dean Wilkins mentioned, we have SAMI, the SPA Analytics and Management Institute. And then we also have a professional development series that's available for our graduate students. And so I'm going to turn it over to our Director of Academic Affairs, Heather Hamilton, who's going to talk about these last two bullets. And as introduction, Heather just joined us from NASPA, which is the accrediting body for our MPA and MPP programs. She was the Chief Assessment Officer there. And we are so happy to have her, and she's done great things for our graduate students to date. So I'll turn it over to you, Heather.
Thank you, and hi everyone. I'm excited to highlight a couple of the robust learning opportunities that Dean Jachnowitz and Dean Wilkins have both mentioned. These are excellent opportunities to get engaged across SPA. They happen outside of your department. So just another example of how SPA is offering you something outside of your degree program. So the first is SAMI, as you'll keep hearing, our SPA Analytics and Management Institute. And it is one of our most popular kind of co-curricular opportunities. It was created to build from what you learn in class and further help prepare you for your career after graduate school. We do this by focusing on practical cutting edge skills and bringing in leading experts from both outside of AU, people that you wouldn't have a chance to interact with at other universities, as well as by engaging some of our most popular faculty to offer compressed weekend courses that hone your skills and make sure your resume reflects the in-demand professional competencies that will help you get to where you want to go. A couple of points about our SAMI classes. They really are built to be as accessible as possible to you. That's why they're only offered on weekends. You can take them as a 0 credit course. That means just pass fail, which means no tuition. It would be a free course for you. Or you can use them to take 1 credit classes and count them towards your degree. So we want to make sure they're as flexible as possible for you, so that when you're honing in on a specific skill, you can do so for free, pass fail, or you can do so to really build your degree. And if you take any combination of 3 courses and pass them, you can earn a SAMI certificate, which is just another way to showcase your skills and add a boost to your resume. Next slide. Thanks. So these are just a sampling of the types of courses that we offer each year. I think you'll find that there is something for everyone. We offer courses that focus on quantitative skills like data visualization, which is actually this weekend, or causal inference. We have classes that really help hone in on future careers, maybe something like GIS mapping or starting a nonprofit. And then we also have courses that build on what you've already learned in class, thinking more specifically about policy writing or media skills. And we are always developing new ones. So this is really just a sampling. New next semester, we are offering courses on public sector consulting with somebody from Guidehouse, and also really jumping on the COVID-19 train and offering a course about policy implications. So you can see a full list of the courses we're offering next semester in your preview day e-folder. And you'll see that there are 3 courses that we're offering in person, as Dean Wilkins mentioned earlier. So we're really excited to be able to bring people together again through our SAMI courses. So just to recap, SAMI courses also give you a chance to interact with a broader set of instructors, and you can see some of the ones that we've had recently. And these are faculty that come just to teach for SAMI. They're not teaching anywhere else across SPA. And so they're really taking time out of their careers to bring their unique skill sets and expertise into our classrooms. And so I think you'll find that that really helps complement what you're learning from your full-time faculty and dig into special skills. Next, I want to talk about the professional development series. We have, and you will learn more from Dean Forney later today, that our career services teams, both at SPA and AU, do a really, really good job of helping you stay informed about full-time job and internship opportunities, helping you network with potential employers through our industry days or by bringing specific employers to campus, and really helping bring a broad set of resources directly to you to help you meet your professional goals. But at SPA, we take that a step further with our professional development series. This opportunity, these workshops really focus in depth on how students can prepare specifically for public affairs careers. So AU is going to offer you a lot of resources about being successful in your careers, but we want to make sure that you're successful for public affairs. And so we offer about 6 professional development workshops each year. These are also run on the weekends. They run between 2 and 4 hours so that you can help balance taking your SAMI class one weekend and courses, and then also join one of the professional development workshops. And just like SAMI, they're open to all of our SPA graduate students. We keep these really small. Right now, there are only 12 students each course. And that way you can really receive the one-on-one attention and feedback that makes a difference when you're thinking about next steps for your career. You can see a couple of the workshops that we offer, things like career planning, crafting your resume specifically for government jobs and USA jobs, which is, if you've tried that already, you know how important that skill set is. And then also interviewing. And then the one tomorrow, which is also listed on the slide, is professional networking, how to build and leverage your network, which is especially useful.
I'll give it one more minute, and then turn it over to Jennifer, but I'll wait one more minute. The professor and me waiting for questions, and see if you have any other questions about SAMI or professional development series or academics in general at SPA.
Well, I'm going to ask some questions because I get them all the time. Maybe it'll help. So I'm really nervous, Allison. I get from students, they're very nervous about their preparation for instance, MPP. And I noticed that the boot camp, how is that taught? Is that taught with assuming that students have what baseline of knowledge?
So we assume, and I teach the intro statistics class for the MPP. And so we assume that we're going to teach you everything that you need to know. And so the MPP boot camp is optional. It's great to do. It's also a great way to meet people, to make you feel more comfortable and prepared, but you don't need to do it. And so we will teach you all the basics, all the material that you need to know to be successful in the classes. And so that's kind of our philosophy here at SPA. Somebody asked, how do you sign up for the boot camp? If you're interested in the MPP boot camp, once you're enrolled, you will hear from the MPP program director, Jocelyn Johnston, about signing up, and they'll give you instructions about how to sign up for it.
So how about faculty relationships, Dr. Jachnowitz? I mean, how accessible are the faculty to the students? I know you talked about having small classes, but I get that question a lot from students. What is their role? Are they easily accessible?
Oh yeah, so I mean, all the faculty have set office hours where you can pop in. For example, I'm having some of my office hours on 9 p.m. Monday night via Zoom because we're virtual, and the students love it because they're home, they're done with work, they can just pop in and say, ask their questions and say hi. I'm going to continue to do that because it's working out so well, and people really can come in and see me. But otherwise, you can easily email faculty and say, let's set up a meeting, let's set up a time. And faculty are very open to that. I just met with a student this morning in China. And so we talked about statistics, and then he's like, tell me what's going on with the election. He's like, all eyes are on the US right now. And so we talked for 10 minutes about that. And I think that's generally what you would find here in SPA. And I think, when we're back in person, there's a big lobby in our building with a cafe, and oftentimes you'll just bump into faculty in the hall and have conversations. And so hopefully soon we'll be back to that. You can see in Jennifer's picture, that's our porch. There are chairs out there and tables, and people can meet outside. And so it's a nice environment to study in. There's a question about study fees. So I think Jennifer or Emily can put in the chat. We have a website that lists all of the tuition and fees related with studying at AU. And so we can get that to you.
Fantastic. Emily, I appreciate you dropping it in, tuition and funding page. And we've detailed that information by semester. So it's incredibly helpful to look at by semester tuition costs per credit hour and student fees.
And if you're not familiar with our spring plan, you can read about it on our website. But a big component is that we're offering 10% tuition discount in the spring. And then also some of our fees are being reduced or eliminated.
A little coaching, guys. I'm going to talk a lot today as you're vetting and making decisions about metrics, as you're comparing and contrasting programs, because you're all very talented. This is a very important place to start, understanding cost of attendance for each of the programs that you're looking at. And again, just I make it my business to know how much some of our competing programs cost. I will draw your attention to differentials on student fees. It is amazing how much some institutions charge students in fees. So make sure you're paying attention to that. I think that is one thing I've been impressed with the robust student services at American University, and our student fees are really amazingly low when you look at them compared to other competitors. It looks like we have a question. I want to definitely answer the question about tuition and merit aid. Why don't we save that for the session at the end, though? I think that's the most appropriate time maybe to field those questions, if you don't mind.
Yeah, that sounds great. So I guess we will turn it over to you to talk about career strategies and professional development.
All right, thanks you guys. Very, very helpful. Okay, let's see if I can get these slides up for you. There we go, except I want to start at the beginning. All right. Just a little thumbs up again from everybody. You got it? Brianna, I can see you. You got it? Okay. And I also want to say, hey, thanks to those of you that leveraged some of our virtual backgrounds. I saw some of you, you don't have to put your cameras on. I know how that is. I spend some days like that too, where I really need to shower. But those of you that have your cameras on and used our backgrounds, I love it. I hope you're feeling a part of the community already. Okay, I mentioned at the top when we started that, again, as if I could just take my SPA hat off for you for a moment. Return on investment and professional outcome data for programs is absolutely essential when you're looking at professional degree programs. And I'm going to confess to you, this is an area where a lot of programs will skate. They will not always be as transparent as you need related to how they do in moving students into the field. And I mean positions related to your particular study. So again, a few hints to you. I love telling anecdotes, stories about our students. I mean, they are wonderful. Every one of our students are unique, but that does not mean that the student is like you. So what I want you to challenge on is ask for trend data. You absolutely have to have access to trend data over time and be able to look at what they've done and see if anything related to their outcomes interests you. So you have no reason to believe me. At American University, I think this is one of the best things the university does. Note that this is not SPA. This is American University tracks professional outcomes across all of our degrees across the campus. And so just what you don't want today is some homework, but I'm going to assign it. I want you guys to take some time, if we want you to remain serious about us, and visit this site that you see in front of you. As you can see, you can drop in your degree and of course our school, and up will come overall placement data for your degree. You will get information about salary, placement by sector, and then you will be able to review internship data and full-time position or professional data. And I already know that you're going to be enthused with what you see. So I want you to visit there, and then I want you to challenge the other institutions that you're looking at for comparable data. Please do not compromise in this area, because this is exactly why you're investing. You obviously have heard a lot about how hard we work on developing your hard skills. And so you are much more marketable for employers. And so that emphasis is because we want you to always have a solid ROI, return on your investment. Now, a quick quiz question. As you guys were listening this morning, you heard Dr. Jachnowitz talk about our strategic design, where our classes start in the evening. They only meet one day a week. Many of our professional development courses and SAMI courses are meeting on the weekends. So what's your guess? What are all of our students doing for the most part during the day, especially in the epicenter, the Washington, D.C., greater D.C. area? I'm hoping that when I jump in the chat box, I'm going to see a lot of great information that you're right. Most of our students are working. Now, I don't want you to be fearful. We don't just say, hey, yeah, you're admitted. Come on to SPA and go get a job. We understand, especially if you're coming from outside. Again, I keep saying greater DMV. That's DC, Maryland, Virginia, right? They're all contiguous. And so our students work across those areas. We work really hard on helping all of our students, even before you start with your professional development. Heather highlighted for you many of the things we do every semester on top of the career services that goes on. But even before you start with us, yeah, and again, we can't make graduate students do anything. That's very freeing. But boy, if you buy in on this and start with us very early, I will assure you that you will have meaningful employment in some capacity, even in your first semester. So take a look at the steps on the screen. We always offer what we call Career Start virtual sessions. These sessions are led by our dedicated career advisor, Rob San George, and he is going to expose you to all of the career services across campus and in SPA. It is a very important place for you to start. We have 2 of these already scheduled for our spring 2021 admits, and you're going to hear more about them starting next week. We're going to send these out to you and ask you to register for them. The 2 sessions are the same, so I'm just asking that you attend one. They are in December. They last an hour. Yes, they're virtual, but well worth your time. And for our fall 2021 admits, you can bet we're going to offer the same thing very early next summer. And normally we offer 3 to students that are onboarding in the fall. After you take that step, and let me add a little caveat, and you make that big decision to say yes to SPA, that you have decided that SPA is where you want to be and you want to be a part of our community, have at it. You noticed you can sign up as much as you want to have one-on-one coaching with a career advisor. And I would caution many of you that are coming to this region for the first time that you don't want to blindly just apply for positions. Yeah, quite frankly, you'll probably get screened out very quickly. You want to spend the time with the career advisor, talk about your professional aspirations, have him review your cover letter, your resume, get it in a place where it can be competitive. First impressions matter a lot. So take advantage of that. Many of you I know are already working professionals. You know you have to pay for these type of services independently and privately. We're offering that to you now, even before you onboard. You heard Dr. Jachnowitz mention Jumpstart. This is our favorite event that happens in the summer. And yes, spring 2021 students, we hope you will come. We want you to come to this event. The entire 2-day session is focused on professional development, bringing alumni in, bringing practitioners in, exposing you to our faculty, really helping you ramp up for what this experience is going to bring you in, again, the greater Washington, D.C. area. And finally, as I'm going to show you a bit of a screenshot, we then put all of our committed students into a private social media platform where we will start pushing jobs, positions, internships, fellowships to you only. It's only for our SPA committed students. And I'm not exaggerating the range of positions. It can be 50 to 150 new positions each week that we want to get in front of you so you can be first in line to apply for these if they're of interest. So I took a quick screenshot of this page. I hope all of my, especially spring 2021 admitted students have found this page. I take a lot of pride in making sure this is updated for you. Please bookmark it. I offer you a checklist in the middle of this page to help you stay on track with the things that are important to do as an admitted student. And if you notice in the right navigation, there are an array of initiatives that we have already scheduled for you. And again, a bit of coaching. You want to make this experience the most successful for you. Engage is the word. Engage, engage, engage. Take advantage of all of these opportunities that are in front of you. There is so much other when you train in DC. There is school, there is work, but there's this other that you're hearing all about, the SAMI, professional development, guest speakers, hearings on the Hill, events at embassies. That is part of the incredible environment that you get when you make a choice to say yes to SPA. You notice the career start sessions that are here. If you open and these drop down, you can register right here. The rest of these initiatives also all salient to the spring 2021 admitted students. Now, fall 2021, I haven't forgotten you. We will rebuild this page in the spring for you, and we'll have all new events ready to go for you ahead of your onboarding. As I promised, I told you, this is a closed platform for our students. We had a little trouble early on. You'll hear Rob share where students that would make bad choices and go to other institutions thought they could hang out in our social media platform and look at our jobs and work with our career advisor. We've even had students that committed to other schools try to come to our events. We are collaborative, but not that much. So this environment is for you once you say yes to SPA. And we absolutely will start pushing opportunities to you. We understand that this is a new environment and that you need some help navigating. So I want to finish the last two slides, just a little bit of a taste of the things that happen as far as career support across campus, and of course from our dedicated career services. The campus level services, which I will just sidebar very quickly for all of you. Please never go and make a choice to go to some institution or unit or school that is trying to convince you that at the graduate level, you do not need dedicated career services. That, especially for professional degrees, you should run. That is never going to serve you in the way that you need as a professional degree student. They are quite helpful, they are supported, but again, you need dedicated services as a professional student, quite frankly, inside the school itself. So we do lever the Campus Career Center for the things that you see, but more importantly, we use our dedicated career services to help with a number of things that we offer to our students. And you can see these categories that we operate in. We've decided with these networking receptions, they're often called industry days, where we very much focus on areas, maybe policy areas of interest for you, or a particular area. You notice the campaigns, Congress, and lobbying. What a great session for our political science students and political communication students, and even our data science students. So we make sure that we traverse all of our degrees with these receptions and industry days. I challenge you to find a campus, and again, a school that does as much coaching as we do related to these elite fellowships and scholarships. I believe that many of you are familiar with the Presidential Management Fellowship Program. The PMF is considered a huge gold star for many students interested in this field. And we have always ranked in the top 5 in the country in moving students into these fellowship programs because of our coaching. We absolutely help students prepare for that exam and to be successful. And you can see foreign service, those interested in Borens or Fulbrights, the help is here for you. Just like any campus, we have a number of campus recruitment events. You can see those enumerated there for you. Recruiting sessions, on-campus information sessions, these are running all the time. when Heather joined us just recently, she started a grad digest that goes out on Saturday mornings. And I'm sure I'm the first one that is opening that up every Saturday morning. And she has a little career corner. And I'm telling you, the listing of opportunities available to our students, I'm just so impressed. And so we are bringing this to you every day, every week for you to consider. And finally, a lot of coaching as far as developing skills. Many of you will have to get a security clearance, you know that. You definitely don't want to go into that blind, not understanding the expectations. So making sure you're taking advantage of getting some coaching ahead of that so you can advance your career. Make sure you do mock interviews before you put yourself in a situation where you're interviewing for a position, especially in this very learned environment. So we offer that anytime that you're interested. So just a sampling of things that are going on all the time. You're going to hear me say this to you a lot, that I never candy coat that making the choice to come to DC, to AU, to SPA, to pursue a graduate degree is anything but very hard driving and has high expectations for you, and you deserve it. You wouldn't have been admitted if we did not believe that you could not come to this school and take advantage of all of these opportunities. These next few years for you will make or break your career. And so this choice, as far as professional outcomes and return on investment, I truly believe next to the academics is the number 2 metric that you should focus on. And I have every confidence that we will never let you down in this area. Okay, I want to be sensitive to time, but I think I do have a little bit of time here to take some questions. So let me jump in now here. I don't want to eat up time for the break. Let me scroll up here. What am I missing? Okay, I've got some questions about admission. We can probably get to that later, but let's talk about career development. Okay, I see for international students, do you also see a trend of students being able to work right away while studying in the DC area? I think obviously there's some additional hurdles and challenges for international students. We have an operation on campus called the International Student Scholar Services Office that can absolutely help you and support you, because we do know that's why you're making the choice to come here, that you're anxious to qualify for CPT. And obviously we know that there are strict rules around qualifying for CPT. And so they are there to support you in that effort, because yes, indeed, we want you to be able to take advantage of it. Many international students have to make choices perhaps to work on campus or pursue assistantships until they can qualify for CPT. But remember that ISSS, they're called, and it's a great support service for the robust international student community. Come on, in Washington, DC, at SPA, and across the campus, quite frankly. Christian, I don't know what the context is. Does this also apply to spring admissions? If you could help me a bit with that.
Yeah, I was just wondering about what you said with the career. Like, it was like the slide that talked about the career one-on-one and also the 2 visiting days.
Yeah, we are rolling on that. We're starting, quite frankly, you're going to get an email as an admitted student next week that lists all of these things for you to sign up, register for, and take advantage of. You bet. We've got this set up for the new spring 2021 admits, and I want you to jump in right away, because that window of onboarding is a lot tighter than for my fall students. So absolutely, we're not going to shortcut you. And then I need you to hang in there and join us at Jumpstart next summer.
Thank you.
For sure. You bet. All right. Question about extracurricular activities outside of the classroom. Erica, I can't wait for our student panel to answer that question, because you don't want to believe someone like me. They're going to tell you about their crazy and exciting lives. Question here, Eva, as someone who has never been to DC, we got to change that. You're going to love it. Do you feel it is possible for a student who doesn't have connections You bet. Absolutely. That's why all of these initiatives are put in place. That I can't remember if you're a spring or a 20 or fall admit, but within a month or two, I will assure you, there is so much work to go around, even in this challenging environment. You won't believe it. It's not, can I get something? It's what something. And that is a great place to be, especially as a professional degree student. So don't be fearful. Trust me. Tessa, I'm so glad you're here. We had a nice conversation this week. I was delighted. How many students would you say find a job outside of the AU their first semester? No, most. Very few students, quite frankly, choose to work on campus. That's how good the job market is. So they definitely are choosing, and you know, the Hill. Many students still choose to start on the Hill with a position, and then from there can often navigate on their own. The consulting firms, the think tanks. I mean, you just can't believe it. It is very few students who choose. Quite frankly, I'm often coaching. Don't anchor yourself to campus too much. Don't do that to yourself. You don't understand. This is kid in the candy shop here in the DMV. There is so much to take advantage of. And I hope you use that as a metric when, again, you're vetting programs. It is a night and day environment training in this type of an environment compared to some other places where very strong programs are represented, don't get me wrong, but just a very different approach to the training. Anything else? Did I miss anything else? Well, we're right on time. I hope I've instilled in you, I've given you homework, don't forget to go visit that platform, right? But know we've got you. Don't be afraid, we have got you. We know that it's intimidating coming into a new environment and how can I learn and how can I compete? I assure you, you will hear from the students during the panel. They were there too when they were onboarding, and they have all obviously found their way. You will too, and we will be right there to support you. Okay, let's all get up and stretch, take a little break. You better grab something to eat, something to drink, and join Emily and I on the other side when we introduce this tremendous student panel. Okay, we'll see you in just a bit. Welcome back, everybody. Hope you did take a little break. I'm always so excited for this session when you're able to hear from our current students. So just to cover a few logistics for you so we can get the most out of the session, this is how we're going to roll. If you're one of our guests today, this is one of the few times that if you'll please consider turning your camera off, so that way you can see the panel and they'll stand out. And our panelists, please leave your cameras on. I am going to start by making sure that they all have a chance to introduce themselves. I'll offer just one quick question to get the panel discussion going and warm everybody up. And then we will want to turn, of course, the chat box over to you to advance questions. So I'm going to be assisted by our Assistant Director of Graduate Recruitment, Emily Aronoff. If you see her up in the corner there. And she wanted me to remind you that either put your question in the general chat box or make sure you're sending it to her. If it's something I hope it's not a confidential question, but if it comes to me, I am not going to be the one triaging the chat box. And we want to get through as many of your questions as possible. And then I will wrap up with one kind of culminating question that I think will be important to all of you. I will try to direct questions to just a few panelists at a time. I don't want all the panelists answering every question. We just won't get through many. So I'll try to do a good job of spreading it out. So we're glad you're back, everybody. And so with that, why don't we just jump in and start some introductions. And I'm just going to go with the first person I see on the screen. And that for me is Maggie. So if you don't mind, start kicking it off.
Hi, everyone. My name is Maggie Pertel. I am in my second year in the Terrorism and Homeland Security Policy program. I'm originally from outside of Chicago, and I got my undergraduate degree from St. Louis University. At SPA, I'm currently the Terrorism and Homeland Security Policy Program Rep for our SPA Graduate Student Council. I am also a member of Alpha Phi Sigma, which is our Criminal Justice Honor Society that we have for the JLC and I guess all the rest of the departments too. And I also work 2 jobs. I'm currently a Pathways intern, and most importantly, I'm a graduate student ambassador for the Office of Graduate Admissions. So very happy to have you all here today.
Fantastic, Maddie. Great. Christian, you're next.
Hi, everyone. My name is Christian Santa Maria. I'm originally from Connecticut. I went to the University of Connecticut, UConn, for my undergrad. Go Huskies. I am in my 2nd year of the MPA program here at AU, and I'm also a student in the Graduate Certificate in Leadership for Organizational Change program. I also work 2 jobs like Maggie. I am a Pathways intern at the Pension Benefit Guaranty Corporation, and I'm also a graduate assistant for Americans Department of Government. And thank you, everybody, for coming today. I'm so excited for all of you.
Thanks. How about you, Arsene?
Thank you, Jennifer. Hello, everyone. Thank you all for having me today. My name is Arsene Frederick Jr. I'm originally from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I completed my undergraduate education at Florida State University with a bachelor's in English, a dual minor in political science and education. I'm currently a 2nd year MPA student. Yes, Fort Lauderdale in the house. I'm currently a 2nd year MPA student. I was recently a Pathways intern at HUD, and I finished last year fall. I can't remember the date where I finished. Currently, I serve as the academic validation coordinator in Prince George County Public Schools. I'm also the editor-in-chief of the Public Purpose Journal, and I recently finished a graduate assistantship with Dr. Carter on the Shades of Justice project. Sorry, that was a mouthful. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And I think before we even go on, just because it's been mentioned now 3 times, what the heck is a Pathways intern for the audience? Arsene, Christian, anybody want to jump in?
Sure. Once you're a student, I believe as a Pathways, you can be a Pathways with your bachelor's. You can also be a Pathways with your graduate degree, or shall I say your advanced degree. And it's a federal government program to where you essentially apply on USA jobs with all the federal government agencies. And so if you're a Pathways intern, the announcement will typically say that you can transition from an intern into a full-time role, or you would just be an intern for an allotted time. And so sometimes you'll be a management analyst working in particular departments across the federal government. And really, it's just allowing you to gain that specialized experience to, if you aspire to have a career in government, particularly within the federal government. And again, typically it's for students.
Perfect. Thank you for that. Maddie, how about you?
Yeah, my name's Maddie Bouchang. I am originally from Austin, Texas / Corpus Christi, if anyone knows where that is. I went to UT Austin for my undergrad. I am a 1st year, 2nd semester student in the political communications program here. And I am working this semester both as a graduate assistant for the School of Public Affairs and Department of Government, and a teaching assistant as well.
Thank you so much. Ron, how about you?
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Ron Banks. I'm originally from New Jersey. I got my undergrad in political science from Penn State University. I'm in my last semester as a grad student. Yes. I graduate in about a month, and I just left my role in the mayor's office in Baltimore, Maryland, where I currently live, and I'm transitioning to be campaign manager of a city council race in Brooklyn, New York.
Oh, thank you so much. Peyton.
Hi, everyone. I'm Peyton Baker. I'm originally from Tucson, Arizona. I went to undergrad at Colgate University, where I double majored in mathematical economics and computer science. I am a data science, so I'm running SPA, and I currently work as a software consultant for Mastodon Technologies. And I'm not really involved in other SPA activities, as I've never been on campus as I started this summer. So with COVID, have not been to American University yet, but I'm looking forward to that.
You bet. We're excited to have you. And Darius.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for showing up. I'm really excited for you. I am a 2nd year MPP student. And I'm also a full-time Army officer. I'm in my 19th year of service, and I'm also a full-time dad to a 3-year-old. This semester is very hectic. I got my undergrad at the University of Central Florida. DC is my hometown, but I grew up overseas. My dad was a State Department Foreign Service officer.
Fantastic. Erin?
Hi, everyone. So my name is Erin Williams. I'm originally from Dallas, Texas. For undergrad, I went to Oklahoma State University, where I got a degree in philosophy with a minor in sociology. I'm now a second-year master's student in the JLC program, concentrating in justice and public policy. I'm currently involved in SBA as the managing print editor for the Public Purpose Journal and the Alpha Phi Sigma Honor Society, and I also serve as a graduate research assistant for Dr. Palmer in the JLC department. Outside of SBA, I'm involved with CASA for Children of DC as a program assistant and also as a data analyst with a diversity, equity, and inclusion consulting firm.
Fantastic. Keith?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Keith Burton. I'm originally from St. Louis, Missouri. I did my undergrad at Southern Illinois University, which is in Carbondale, Illinois. And I was a 4-year ambassador for the Public Policy Institute program there. But I got my degree in psychology and biological science. So you can do many things and get to any place. I'm a second-year master's student pursuing my degree in political science with a concentration in American politics. And I'm active duty in the United States Air Force. I'm on my 8th year now, and I've been doing some volunteer work at the Pentagon while I've been out here. So props to those who've been really involved in AU. And when I graduate this semester, I should be going to the United States Air Force Academy to teach political science.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much. And of course, not least, Chelsea.
Hey everyone, I'm Chelsea Thompson. I'm a second-year MPP student, and I'm focusing on social policy and criminal justice. I'm originally from Massachusetts, and I went to UMass Amherst undergrad. I'm currently a graduate research assistant for Dr. Carter in JLC, focusing on her Shades of Justice project, and I'm also a federal policy intern at a local CDFI.
All right, I'm sure you guys are hearing all that these students are doing, and I know you're thinking, there's no way this can be me. Yes, it can be you. And so just from a few of you on the panel, maybe Ron, I'll start with you. What have been some of your favorite things about SPA, DC, AU, and let's be honest, what have been some of the challenges that you've confronted?
Sure. So I'll start with my favorite, best thing and also challenge at the same time. So SPA, of course, understands that we're all working professionals in some way, shape, or format. And so a lot of the classes start at 5:30 p.m. and then there's also 8:20 p.m. And so I was able to work full-time the entirety of my 2 years. And so that's been the best part, right? Not being able to take off work because I need that money to pay my mortgage. But also getting, out of class at 11 o'clock was, it created that flexibility. But also it was a challenge, right? Because you work all day and then you sit in classes for 1 day a week or 2 days a week for 6 hours straight. And so that was a great thing about AU, but also a challenge that I was willing to take on. And the fact that I was able to sort of do that successfully, just like many other students, it kind of created like a camaraderie and a community in the classroom, not only academically, but, personally. Another thing that was great about AU was I took a lot of my experience in local government. So prior to coming to AU, I worked for 4 different mayors in 3 different cities. And so my focus was on local government and sort of bringing that into the classroom and kind of helping, create that application through the class and the projects and with the practitioners as professors was really a highlight of my experience.
Fantastic, great perspective. And Maggie, maybe you can go next from a student, unlike Ron, coming straight from undergrad. Maybe you could offer that lens.
Yeah, I definitely, the reason I came to grad school right out of undergrad is I love my undergrad institution, but they were very policy driven. And now I'm in the Terrorism and Homeland Security program. So I just definitely wanted something different, then I decided to really study, I guess, in undergrad. And so I think that was one of the biggest challenges for me coming to DC, is I was somewhere where they prepped you to like go work on campaigns. I worked in campaigns on undergrad, and it was very easy to join. And I came to DC and I was like, well, to get into the federal government, I need to wait to like get a security clearance and to wait for all of that. But AU, as Jennifer mentioned earlier, has been so helpful with all of the career aspects that it took me probably a little bit longer just because I came in very unprepared for that aspect. But AU has been great in terms of that. And then also, I just always have to say another highlight of SPA is just I have a very close-knit group of friends that I got from my program. And so I have a community that of people to hang out with, but also for that network to continue growing for our futures.
Great. And Maddie, I want to maybe have you wrap up this question, because I know that you were a spring admit. And I also know that you took advantage of Jumpstart. You went in the summer. I had mentioned that in a presentation right before. So we have a lot of spring admits joining us and making decisions, I hope, today. So maybe some high points for you, and again, and any challenges you confronted.
Yeah, definitely. I would say that coming in spring was something I was concerned about. I was afraid that it might sort of throw off my schedule, something like that. I haven't faced any problems. When there have been little maybe schedule conflicts, the advisors are really, really great at sort of working with you and making your schedule work for you. I've been able to take classes that maybe I wouldn't have been able to take otherwise. It's been really awesome. And it's also been great, sort of to echo what Maggie was saying. Coming in with spring, it's a smaller class size, but you really sort of get to know those people and sort of build that community. And I've really enjoyed that. And just AU in general, the professors are very supportive. And I think that that is a highlight that happens in fall, that happens in spring. And they're very aware of what's happening and involved in what you want and need.
Great. Okay. I see this chat box. What do you think, Emily? We ready to jump in? Do you have something that we should advance?
Yeah, so there are a couple questions that kind of jumped off Maggie's last point. People wondering how many students come directly from undergrad / how many wait, and then for students that did come directly out of undergraduate, how was that adjustment, or did they feel welcomed in the classroom without that work experience?
So I'll comment last, since of course, from a bigger perspective of seeing who's coming in. But again, for those of you that did, Peyton, I know you were working, but you too were pretty close to your undergrad. So have you felt well prepared? What perspective would you offer?
Yeah, so I worked for a year before I joined SPA, and so I think that you don't feel unprepared if you come straight out of undergrad. Your undergrad definitely prepares you for this. If you're coming from work and you're like, I'm kind of worried about getting back into school, they're also prepared to help you transition. Professors are very accommodating. They want to work with you. They understand that you're working. And so jumping in from undergrad is not a problem. And you will meet people who are working, and you can learn from their experiences. You can talk to them so you can get better insight for when you want to transition out of your master's program and graduate. Where can I go next? Who can I talk to get better insight of what jobs exist out there and what I want to do?
And Christian, I remember working with you coming from UConn and trying to land the big land to get you to come to SPA. What's your perspective on coming pretty close to your undergrad?
Honestly, it's been one of the greatest experiences I've had. And I feel like if I had taken a break between personally with myself, I probably wouldn't have gone back to grad school until later. So I kind of just wanted to jump right in when I had all my fresh knowledge from undergrad. A lot of my classes were very similar at UConn. So it was kind of nice to jump into that content right again in SPA. And honestly, I've never felt like a lack or anything, not having that previous job experience. I actually remember one class that I was in where almost everybody had like this full-time professional job, and the professor kept asking me, it was an organizational development class. He was like, well, what about a student organization you've been involved in? And what about a job you might have had on your campus during undergrad? So everybody really does make you feel very accommodated, very included at SPA. And I would say great decision to come straight from undergrad. I don't regret it at all.
Christian, I wanted you to comment. Yeah, I of course know that you've added a certificate. What was that decision? Adding the certificate. We've talked a lot about SANI, how all these students can take advantage of that and that certificate, but you've added a different certificate, right? I think you're,
Yeah, so I added my certificate in leadership for organizational change, and that's something that actually really interests me. So right now, my Pathways internship is in the Office of a Director of Human Capital for a federal agency. So we really focus on kind of making our agency the best it can be, the best workplace for our federal workforce. And a lot of my classes I've taken, such as organizational analysis, facilitation for team development, org diagnosis and change, all of those kind of went hand in hand with this management consulting focus area of the MPA. But then I was like, let me take it that step further. It's only one extra class to add the graduate certificate. And it's like a great thing to add to your resume. And you kind of get to delve even deeper into that focus area you wanted to. So it's definitely been a great decision so far.
Great. Emily, something next?
Yeah. So next question, how would you describe the community at SPA?
Yeah, Erin, you want to take a swing at this?
Yeah, absolutely. So I came here from Oklahoma, which is a very small town. So coming here and seeing all these like new people with new ideas from all these different places was fantastic. And it has just been such a great experience and so welcoming from faculty, staff, students. My cohort has really come together and it's been really, really cool. And everyone's just so welcoming and nobody has ever like put shade on me or anything from being from a more rural area. So really it doesn't matter where you come from, everyone is welcome here.
Wonderful perspective. And Arsene, I know you're very involved because of your role with PPJ. So maybe your perspective on the student community.
Absolutely. To be frank, I would say it's what you make it. So I was the communications director for the Public Purpose Journal last year, and I decided to return this year as the editor. Well, I was elected, of course, but I put my bid in, of course, to return this year. And we were really having a lot of conversations around what we can do in the virtual environment, and of course, we parallel that against what we were able to do last year. And so it's really interesting. I like it. One thing I'll point out is a lot of students are volunteering, a lot of students are working full time, a lot of students are, I think it's a question about families, students have families, ranging from a lot of students are all different points in their lives in the program. So we're continuously finding ways to be innovative and creative in the way in which we advertise and in the way in which we talk about our events to ensure that we can continue to have a community around the initiatives and programs that we have with the Public Purpose Journal.
Appreciate it. And Chelsea, maybe I know you made a very, it was a strategic decision, but a tough one that you were going to step away from full-time work. So to maybe talk about that transition and this decision for you to pivot and then jump into the graduate degree.
Yeah, definitely. So I was in DC for about 5 years working at a nonprofit research and policy organization. And so I decided to leave my position there to attend AU for my MPP, which is definitely very difficult to leave a full-time salaried position for a grad school. And I've been having a few different internships every semester, which AU has been super helpful in helping me secure. But it's definitely a different type of community. I wasn't around a lot of, younger students when I was working full-time. So it's nice to see that breath of fresh air. And I think it is really helpful to have a dynamic and a balance between folks who have a little bit more work experience in the classroom and folks who are coming straight out of undergrad. It's really helpful to be able to work with people who've come straight from school and still have that school mindset on the brain and are a little bit more dedicated in a different direction to schoolwork than folks who might have been working full time. And so that was really helpful to have that balance. And I think it's also what you want to make of it. AU, you can either drop in and leave after your classes, or you can really make a community out of it. But I think most people are really open to that community building activities. And I found some great friends and great professors throughout my time here.
And Chelsea, I know a few of you mentioned your graduate assistantships, and this has been a common question from students. So I think most of you secured your graduate assistantships, but please correct me if I'm wrong, through the Merit Aid allocation process. But did anyone secure working with a faculty member or an institute or a center on their own? Erin, you want to speak to that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I came in kind of disappointed. It's like, oh, I really want to get involved with research. But as soon as September rolled around, there were already job postings being sent out to all the grad students, and one in particular for Dr. Palmer came out, and her research area is really similar to mine. And so I applied, and I just got to speak with her, and I was like, yes, this is perfect. And she hired me from that, and I've had it ever since, and it's been awesome. So.
And Maddie, you too?
Yeah, so I actually, my graduate assistant was through Merit Aid, but then over the summer, obviously I wasn't, over winter break, I wasn't taking, no, it was summer. What is time? I wasn't taking courses. So I had some time in my graduate, the professor I was working for knew that I had this time and they were transitioning courses. So she actually put me in contact with some other professors who were working on putting this course together. And I worked on that over the summer. And then that's how I got my teaching assistantship this semester. So there are ways to go about it and do it other ways. And professors are very helpful and like really good at helping make connections.
Wonderful. Emily, next question, maybe?
Yeah, so I think this was touched on a little bit already, but you know, for those of you that moved from outside of the DC area to DC, how do you think AU helped with the transition and helped you adjust and get settled in DC?
Keith, do you want to take a swing at this to start?
Yeah, I'll start by saying just attending events like this, you know, like a preview day was very helpful. I actually came out on a red eye from California where I was stationed before, out to DC in the middle of the week, just to go to a particular day like this. And that's where I've met a majority of the folks that I'm still friends with now, as far as graduate school is concerned. And additionally, I think your advisors are really helpful. So like my go-to, like I email pretty much weekly on a weekly basis is Mr. Robert Briggs. We call him Bob. He's a master's in political science program advisor, and he's been super helpful in letting me know like what classes are good for what I'm looking to do, what's a program that might benefit me, or who are professors. I saw some questions about who are the best professors. Talk to your advisors. I'd say if you don't know or you can't talk to your other students about it, yeah, speak with your advisors. They're really good and a really helpful voice to let you know what path and what direction you can take here at AU.
Maggie, I got to go back because I do remember your first visit to SPA with your family. So I'd love your perspective.
Yeah, so I have never lived anywhere but the Midwest. And so moving here, I was definitely very excited. But I was nervous, but I actually think I adjusted really well to living in the DMV area. What helped me the most was Jumpstart. And I know for those of you maybe in the spring, if you might be able to not to do it until after your first semester, but there was a housing bus tour, or this past year we had like a housing panel due to COVID, and the housing situation like really stressed me out. But like SPA gives you resources for everything. So not only coming into the program and adjusting just to that, but also just life within the DMV. We all got like guides about where to like go in DC and stuff like that. And then a lot of people in my program, we took it upon ourselves to kind of like explore the city together. So yeah, I found it very easy to transition, which made my family very happy. So since I was moving away.
So it is kind of a challenging landscape, but let's stay on this housing topic because that can make folks really nervous. So I don't, any of you want to comment on your approach to finding housing in DC? Take yourself back to that first time, especially if you were coming from the outside. Maddie, you want to describe in a spring semester what you did?
Yeah, sure. So my housing was a little bit difficult, definitely stressed my parents out. So I came in the spring. I was coming from Texas. I had been on Facebook pages. The Facebook pages are very helpful. If anybody needs links to the Facebook pages, I can send those, just message me. They're very useful. That is actually how I found my house and my roommates. And so what I did is, not knowing the neighborhoods, ended up doing a lot of research, sort of was in talking to someone beforehand about maybe moving in, something like that, came, but didn't want to commit until I saw the place. and like got to meet the people. So what I ended up doing is coming here and actually getting an Airbnb for a month, which I don't know if that's the best solution for everybody, but it actually ended up working out pretty well for me because I got to know the city and got to know where I would want to be, who I would want to be with, and it gave me a little bit of wiggle room while being able to be here in person. Yeah.
All right, Darius, I know you've mentioned family. You've obviously hometown, but probably we've got some folks here that do have families, and I see some concerns about pets, which are part of our families. So any advice from you?
With COVID, childcare really changed. So I do about 60% of the childcare at home because my wife works full time. She's a lot smarter than me. She's a senior analyst at the RAND Corporation. So, but the good thing about SPA is now I can have a intelligent discussion with her instead of I lift heavy things, It was very hard for me when COVID started to manage taking care of Nikki and managing my school load. And there was a question before about, taking more classes in the summer. I really recommend against it, even without a family. But if you have a family, it's harder, especially during the summer. It's a lot of work in a very compressed time, and you're going to need every bit of it. And then finally, I'll say the way the classes are set up to be more evening focused really gives me the opportunity to manage my time between Nikki and my class load. And then after Nikki goes to bed, I can go to class. So what I'll say is it's manageable because the classes are in the evening for the family folks. I hope that answered your question, Jennifer.
I do appreciate it. I want to comment on the summer. You heard many of these students have taken classes in the summer. Peyton, I know you started in the summer, and indeed it is compressed, but more and more we are taking full advantage of the summer because, quite frankly, many of our students want to expedite. They want their work is here and they want to get going with their careers. So there are 2 terms in the summer, and you are able to take a full load of classes over the summer months, and you will learn that if you're offered merit aid, you can also apply it in the summer. So Peyton, your first taste of SPA was summer classes. How was that start for you?
Yeah, so I really enjoyed taking classes over the summer. It allowed me to actually get started and kind of get my feet underneath me before the fall, so that I could put more classes on while then still working full time. But I'm gonna agree with Darius that it's compressed. So it's 6 weeks for a whole semester for a class. So it does require you to have more time, like to be able to spend down those 6 weeks and really be able to focus and get the job done. That being said, professors also understand that it's 6 weeks, so they're willing to work with you a lot, especially if you're managing other responsibilities with family, work, etc.
Thanks. Ron, I want to go back to your introduction where I thought I heard you say that you were managing full-time school along with full-time work for most of your tenure. Is that indeed what you shared?
Yes.
Can you speak to that juggle of juggling it all?
Yeah, absolutely. So I did not get a car until halfway through the program. And so I was commuting from Baltimore, and I would wake up, catch the MARC train, 7 a.m., get to the office, work a full day, be in classes from anywhere from 2.5 hours to 6 hours. By the time we got out of class, the last MARC train had left to go back to Baltimore. So I had to catch the 12 a.m. Greyhound bus, get back to Baltimore 1 o'clock in the morning, and then wake up and do it all over again. And so balancing all of that is sort of rooted within the dedication of how badly you want to do the program, finish the program, and sort of make it your experience. And even though I was doing all of this, I was still able to find community within the program and enjoy everything that the program had to offer as much as I wanted to take advantage of it. And so you heard a lot of students talk about the Pathways internship program and how AU kind of helped them. I didn't necessarily need that. What I needed was sort of making sure that the path that I was on, which is local government, was the path that I actually wanted to be on. And that's kind of sort of the benefits that I chose to seek out. So balancing everything is definitely a challenge, but with any challenge, you kind of manage and maintain and adjust as needed.
Yeah, that's a crazy schedule. And I do think I've heard many students say, though, quite frankly, so many of you are running those type of schedules while you're pursuing your graduate degree. So it's really just propping each other up. It's not a lot of sympathy of, hey, don't try me. I'm crazy busy too. Maybe last question, sadly, from our audience, and then I'll just finish with a culminating question to a few of you. Emily, anything else we missed in the box?
Yeah, so something that I think Ron touched on a little bit and that we've had some people responding to, but there are a lot of questions about commuting, having a car versus taking public transportation. Which is better? Is public transportation usable if you don't have a car? What would you kind of recommend? Car, no car? If no car, how do you get around?
Arsene, do you want to comment on that?
Absolutely. So when I first, I was also spring admit, by the way, spring 19. When I first started attending AU, I didn't have a car. So after spring break, I then got a car, and that was really a family. So my family in Florida, they wanted me to have a car. So I'm going to be honest, I wasn't paying for it, and there are some parts when it comes to the finances of it all I don't pay for. But I do want to point out, whenever COVID itself just sort of clears up, AU students do have a Metro Pass, the Metro Pass option, and I use that greatly. And it was really interesting because I had a lot of colleagues at GW, Georgetown, and while some folks are spending money there, that was really useful in that regard, especially if maybe you're coming straight out of undergrad and you're still trying to find your way with jobs and employment. You wouldn't have to spend that, $325, I think it is, or $225 a ride. That's really helpful in that regard. So yeah, that was my experience.
What they're alluding to is, again, in the COVID landscape, it's not active, but AU in normal times has the benefit of called the UPass, which offers free public transportation to our students who are enrolled full time. And again, we're the only institution in the region that offers that to our students. So to Arsene's point, you talk about saving some money on transportation costs. As we wrap up today, and I want to get as many of you in, and I saw the question advance very early on from one of our guests today, and I think it's a very good one. If you could take yourselves back to this point, making the decision, and you all, I know, were very competitive candidates and having the privilege to work with you. Maybe if you could highlight and try to offer different perspectives, what were some of the primary reasons you ultimately made the decision to say yes to SPA? And Aaron, I hate to put you on the spot, but it sometimes makes it easier to go first. But Aaron, how about you go, and then Christian maybe follow, and we'll see how time goes.
Yeah, absolutely. So 3 major things played into my decision. So location was first. Like, you cannot beat this location and the opportunities here. It is crazy. There's just so many opportunities, and you can just see so many historical things, and it's just beautiful here. And the program was my second reason. So it's super flexible. You can concentrate in pretty much whatever you want. Like, professors are really open to independent studies and stuff like that if you're interested in anything super specific. And there's so many people studying so many different types of things here, which is another huge factor. And then lastly is the people and the community here. Like, it is so open and welcoming, and I have never felt like any negative things from any like staff, faculty, or people. It's just been very welcoming and comforting, and I've just felt so much a part of it. So would recommend.
Thank you. Christian, your thoughts?
Yeah, thank you, Jennifer. I would honestly echo everything Aaron has said. The community at SPA is unbeatable. Like, I went to several other graduate school tours, preview days for similar programs. Nobody had that community, close-knit family aspect like SPA has. And also being somebody who came from Connecticut, which is very small, very like kind of low-level state government kind of opportunities for MPA. I remember this conversation I had with Jennifer actually when she was convincing me to come, and she said, Christian, you need to get out of your comfort zone and you need to come to the epicenter of policymaking. This is where you're meant to be. And that has honestly stuck with me the whole time I've been here. There are just countless opportunities in the DMV, so many agencies you can apply for, so many research projects you can get involved with on campus. And honestly, I don't regret my decision. I've met some of my best friends here, and really just taking that leap of faith and stepping out of my comfort zone has really benefited me in the long run.
Well, definitely you shine. Keith, how'd we do after that red-eye flight? Bringing you in? And
yeah, so I think AU, it's been real. It's been nice for me. This is going to sound weird, but some of you may be in this situation. Like I was looking at a ton of schools like Kristen mentioned, and I actually made a spreadsheet, and on that spreadsheet, I listed like some things I had in common with some of the professors that at the school I did my research, and looking at AU, I saw a lot of commonalities. There was a lot of professors that aren't just currently working in the industry, working in the institution, working, in the Hill and other places, but they're also doing research and doing things that I was interested in. So, and then from a political science standpoint, I saw programs that I hadn't seen in any other institution, like the Public Affairs Advocate Institute or the Campaign Management Institute. So institutes that allow you to have an opportunity to not only work with professors, but also work directly with people in the industry and on Capitol Hill, and in campaigns, or whether they're advocacy or doing lobbying work down in DC on K Street. I thought that was just super interesting, and I have that opportunity. So,
yeah, please, Ron.
Yeah, so two really important things for me. Number one was the network. I think AU has some of the best alumnus in the country. Sarah McBride, who's alumnus of AU, just elected first trans state senator in Delaware. That is a huge deal. I'm not going to quote Joe Biden and what he said before, but I wanted my network to be sort of nationwide and worldwide, because that's where I see my career going. And so having that match up and have those dots connected as early as possible through this program was really important for me. The second was really personal. All my life I've been told that I was smart, and it's like, okay, cool, thanks. But I really want to be intelligent. And for me, knowing the knowledge is what makes you smart. Knowing how to apply the knowledge is what makes you intelligent. And at AU, you're not only taught by intelligent people, you're also surrounded by intelligent people. And for me, nothing makes you a better person than being surrounded by people who are better than you. And that is just a benefit that you, quite frankly, can't pay for. I mean, you do, but you know what I mean.
Great perspective. Chelsea, again, you were in the area working, so you knew the schools, the other institutions well. Just what's your perspective?
Yeah, and I went to the schools in the area, and it's going to sound really corny, but when you know, and walking onto AU's campus and meeting everyone, I really just felt a sense that this is the place where I needed to be. And even just talking to the people in my closest circle, they could tell that this was the school I was the most excited and the most passionate about. And so it feels really weird to say, but when you know. And in addition to that, I also knew that I wanted to build up a certain skill set. I had been working for a few years, and so I really had one skill set already, and I wanted to add the quantitative side on that. And AU was a place that I could feel that I wouldn't be a fish out of the water, and that I could feel like that I could really grow those skills without, being too stressed out about not being able to understand some quantitative methods.
Maggie, your perspective?
So just going a little bit deeper into I also was interested in the JLC program. So in general JLC and THSP, I really struggled to find another program that matched this curriculum. So that is more specific to the JLC department. And so I just found it a really special mix of like a lot of the other terrorism programs are a lot more like foreign affairs based. And this one, I liked the public policy aspect of it. And I just thought it was very different. And a lot of the classes offered that I really appreciated. That being said, though, I was never going to choose a school if I didn't see that I could have the amazing community and network there, no matter how good the program was. And I, as everyone else has mentioned, so not to say the same thing over and over again, it was just when I had my very first meeting with Jennifer, like a week before decision day, I knew that it was going to be like the community that I really needed to go along with the amazing program as well.
And Peyton, you're a part of one of our newest programs. So honestly, pioneer. What's your perspective? Because I know you could have picked about any program in the country.
Yeah, so when I was applying to the data science programs, I was looking at the stuff, and then I just got a call from the head of the department, Dr. Wall, and she's like, "Hey, listen, we want to have you," and we started talking, and that was my biggest decision, was that the personal relationship I got with the professor before I even joined the school. You don't get that anywhere else. And another part that I found really compelling of this data science being new and all this stuff was that we get to pull in from many different fields. So like next semester, I'm going to take the campaign management class as well as advanced machine learning. And like, you don't get to do that in most schools, where you get to pull in two top fields from two like completely different academic spheres and get to work at both of them. So I mean, the data science department here was just, there's nothing else like it.
Boy, Darius, you better bring it, because you got to wrap it up. Culminating thoughts, as we're just almost on time here.
Right, and I put some of these in the chat box. But the reason I chose this school, I looked at the rankings of the public affairs departments on all the schools in the area, and at the time SPA was on the top, and I said, okay, that's the school I'm going to apply to. And be honest, AU was not willing to let me in right away, and I had to beg and plead, but I finally made it in through the door. And the thing that I realized after looking at, the graduates and what they did, and, the metrics, I knew that building the cohort relationships were going to be so important, because, and you'll see this when you start your classes, you'll identify students that are brilliant. They're going to do great things. And if you're, good with them, later on down the line, you can use their knowledge and they can lean on you. And it's a wonderful community that develops. So that's why I chose SBA. And let me tell you, I came in for the environmental focus on the MPP program. And it turns out I love tax policy more than I love environmental policy. I didn't even realize it. So your mind gets blown almost every day with the stuff that you learn. So that's my take on it.
Oh. Yes, Keith, did you want to add something?
Yeah, can I say just one more thing to add about that? I know we talked a lot about cohorts, but don't turn down or let down. Like, one of the biggest friendships or groups that I've made is across cohorts. So I've made friends across many different programs, and I think that was one of the biggest impacts as well for me at AU. So many people in MPP or MPS, like even data science, like my best friends are in data science, believe it or not. So you never know which program.
Very, very true. Benefit of a huge school. Well, I want to thank my co-moderator. Thanks, Emily, so much for helping triage. And of course, most importantly, amazing students. You can see each one has a unique story and great involvements. And I hope you found their perspective quite valuable. So thank you to one and all. We're going to quickly transition. I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Jachnowitz, who's going to introduce our speaker. So see you later. And again, thank you, guys. Great to see you.
Hi, everyone. Well, I hope you're enjoying your day so far. And I am super excited to introduce to you now Chris Edelson, who is a presidential scholar, which is a very timely topic. He's an assistant professor in the Department of Government. He is an expert in presidential national security power under the U.S. Constitution. He's written 2 books, the first one titled Emergency Presidential Power from the Drafting of the Constitution to the War on Terror, and the second one, Power Without Constraint, the Post-9/11 Presidency and National Security. His op-eds have appeared in the Los Angeles Times, Philadelphia Inquirer, USA Today, Newsday, U.S. News and World Report, and The Hill. And I'm so pleased to turn it over to Professor Edelson.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And I'm glad to be talking to everyone today. I am very much interested in hearing your questions, so leave time for that. But let me just give a little bit of background. As Dr. Jachnowitz said, my area of focus is presidential power. And in the last few years, I've looked at authoritarian threats to presidential power in the United States. there are a number of scholars who have written about this. That's been like the focus of my writing for the last couple, or really 3 or 4 years. And the general consensus among scholars who study authoritarianism and liberal democracies, and I agree with this, is that Donald Trump's presidency has been an authoritarian threat to liberal democracy. Let me just define the terms up front so we're all on the same page. By liberal democracy, I mean a system with free and fair elections. But when you win the election, you can't do whatever you want. There are limits on power. The rule of law applies. Individual rights, like in the United States, rights that are protected by the Bill of Rights or elsewhere in the Constitution. And there are independent courts that enforce the law to make sure that the law applies to everyone. No, the rule of law applies and no one's above the law. There's one book in particular that I think is very useful for making sense of this. I don't know about you, but an experience I've had over the last 4 years or so has been, I suspect you have had this too, for various times and for various reasons, is just being overwhelmed by what's going on and trying to make sense of the information that's out there. I remember laying in bed at night and trying to think to myself, okay, what are the things that the president has done that relate to this tension between authoritarianism and liberal democracy? And there's always new stuff. It's very hard to keep track of. There's a book called How Democracies Die, though, that I mentioned. It's written by 2 political scientists who have studied authoritarian regimes in mainly Latin America and Europe. They give some examples from other parts of the world, though, too. And this book I find very useful for making sense of this first question: is there an authoritarian threat to liberal democracy? Based on their research, one thing they found that is very interesting to me and also very useful, the thesis of their book is that there is an authoritarian threat to liberal democracy in the United States, that the conditions for this authoritarian threat were building over decades, really going back to the 1965 Voting Rights Act and the political realignment that came out of that law. And they're concerned that Trump's presidency is an authoritarian threat to liberal democracy. An authoritarian is simply somebody who rejects liberal democracy, who thinks that they should be able to rule without limits on power. They can do what they want. Nobody can rein them in. Authoritarians often hold elections, sometimes because they have to. Not all authoritarians succeed, but they want those elections to be tilted in their favor. There are elections in Russia. There are elections in Hungary and in Turkey, but they're not fair elections. The authoritarians in those countries do the best they can to stack the outcome in their favor so they can stay in power. How Democracies Die, as I mentioned, I find very useful because it helps to make sense of all the information that's coming in, all the news. Based on their research, they find that would-be authoritarians and authoritarians, leaders who are seeking to rule without limits on power, who don't think the rule of law applies, who think that they can use the law to protect themselves and their friends and to punish their opponents, they have the same approach, whether you're talking about Venezuela or Hungary or Russia or Poland or the United States. They can be identified by the same warning signs. And because many people assume, this is certainly what I thought growing up, that an authoritarian threat will be obvious. It will be like tanks in the street. I remember having a nightmare about that at one time in my life, of sort of jackbooted troops marching down the street. A lot of us may have that image in our head of what it means to have an authoritarian government. But most authoritarian leaders do not take power violently, and most accumulate power gradually. You probably hear this, the frog in boiling water analogy that people use a lot. It goes slowly, so it may not be obvious to everyone. The authors of this book, How Democracies Die, came up with a test. Here's how you identify a would-be authoritarian. Do they encourage or condone the use of violence? Do they refuse to accept the democratic rules of the game? In other words, not accepting election results if they lose. Do they see their political opponents as enemies who should be put in jail? Donald Trump in 2016 satisfied all those points on the litmus test that's meant to identify a would-be authoritarian. The point of the test is to identify the would-be authoritarian so that people can take action to defend liberal democracy. Party Insiders, the book, I'm not sure I agree with all these points, but a lot of it I think is highly relevant. Party Insiders can play a role in preventing authoritarians from gaining power by acting as gatekeepers. So they point to examples in France and in Austria in recent years. The way it's supposed to work is if a would-be authoritarian is seeking power in your party, let's say I'm a Republican governor or member of Congress or a former presidential candidate, and in 2016, I'm watching Donald Trump move toward the presidency, and I see that he looks like somebody, he's encouraging violence at his rallies. He refuses to accept the results of the election if he loses. He says, I'll keep you in suspense. If I win, I'll accept it. He holds rallies where he's calling for his opponent to be put in jail. The theory is that political insiders, in this case in the Republican Party, can take action. They can run against Trump in the primaries, which some did. John Kasich, most centrally, I think, was running for that reason, or was highly motivated by the need to set limits on someone he saw as an authoritarian threat. They can endorse the opponent of the would-be authoritarian if the would-be authoritarian advances to the general election. In 2016, none of that really happened. There were Republicans who were concerned about Donald Trump. Mitt Romney gave a famous speech at the Hinckley Institute, I think it was in the summer of 2016. Of course, he was the last presidential candidate for the Republican Party before Trump ran in 2016. And what Romney said is Donald Trump is a fraud. He is a charlatan. He's somebody who should be opposed. He's not, I'm a Republican and Trump is running as a Republican, but I can't support him. So there were some Republicans who spoke up like that. Senator McCain made similar statements. So did Senator Graham from South Carolina. But the important step that the authors argue can do the most good in preventing would-be authoritarians from getting power is that party insiders can endorse the other party's nominee. So in other words, if you accept the results, the conclusions that the authors of How Democracies Die reach, once you identify the would-be authoritarian by these warning signs, if you're a party insider, you endorse the person from the other party as long as they're committed to liberal democracy themselves. It happened successfully in Austria in 2016 and France in 2017. It didn't happen in the United States in 2016. There were no prominent Republicans I know of who endorsed Hillary Clinton. Some of them did not endorse Trump, like Mitt Romney, for instance, now Senator Romney. But this gatekeeping function failed, and the president was elected. Donald Trump became president. As president, he showed more warning signs. So the authors of How Democracies Die say this litmus test works before somebody is in office. This is how you can tell that somebody has authoritarian ambitions. Once they're in office, the authors describe a soccer analogy that you can use. It's a little cute. I mean, I like it because it kind of makes it easier to remember. If you're not a soccer fan, I understand. Would-be authoritarians, once they're in office, seek to capture the referees, make people who are supposed to be objective, like the Attorney General or the FBI Director or federal judges, if we're talking in the United States, or public health experts in the government. The would-be authoritarian will try to make those people personally loyal to them, either by putting pressure on them if they do things that in the United States that the president doesn't like, or by replacing them. Early in Trump's presidency, he met with James Comey, who was investigating the Russian attack on the US election in 2016. And Donald Trump, in classic authoritarian style, or would-be authoritarian, I don't think he's succeeded yet, but there are indications that he is trying. Donald Trump said to James Comey, I need your loyalty. That's what would-be authoritarians want. They want people who are supposed to be objective and neutral, an FBI director who's gathering the facts about Russian interference in the election, or an attorney general who's supposed to apply the law. They want those people to be loyal to them. That's capturing the referees. The second step that would-be authoritarians take is knocking out star players. Would-be authoritarians generally still hold elections, as I said, because it's in their benefit to do so. It gives them a veneer of legitimacy. Vladimir Putin can say, I'm winning elections in Russia, and he is. And people might say he's popular. Most observers of Russia say it's really difficult to conclude whether Putin is popular or not because he's ruling as an authoritarian. They're not having free and fair elections there. But simply by having an election, the authoritarian can gain more legitimacy. But elections are dangerous for would-be authoritarians because even when they do what they can to stack the odds in their favor, they can lose. In Malaysia, there was an authoritarian regime for decades that ultimately they were defeated in an election. It can happen. So would-be authoritarians try to do all they can to put the odds in their favor. And that means knocking out star players, as I said, delegitimizing one's political opponents, maybe even putting them in jail or even killing them. That's unusual. That happens too. So would-be authoritarians in office try to capture the referees, make people who are supposed to be neutral in government into personal loyalists. They try to knock out star players, either delegitimize or simply sideline by putting in jail or forcing out of the country people who might be a problem for them as political opponents or as rivals. And then the third thing they do is they try to change the rules. For instance, Vladimir Putin recently had the Russian constitution amended so he can stay in power till at least 2036. And he's already been in power for 20 years. So Donald Trump's presidency satisfied all of these criteria as well. Knocking out star players. He's still calling for his opponents to be put in jail. He said toward the end of the election, at the end of the campaign, he publicly wondered why Attorney General Barr had not indicted former President Obama and Vice President Biden. And he met all of these warning signs. In the aftermath of the election, so James Madison said in the Federalist Papers that the people are the most important check on government power. There should be auxiliary precautions, he said, like what we think of as checks and balances in the United States. But the people are the most important check on presidential power. On government power. We have had an election. It looks like the president will probably lose, but two important buts. One, votes are still being counted, so we can't say definitively. Two, and this is what I'm really watching closely. The president is continuing to make clear that he has authoritarian ambitions. In the days following the election, the night of the election, the early morning of Wednesday, November 4th, President Trump gave a speech where he said he claimed there was fraud in the election without evidence to show that. And then he said, frankly, we've already won. He basically declared victory, even though no winner had been declared. Since that speech on Wednesday, November 4th, he has continued to make these claims, often using social media. He said, I hereby claim the state of Michigan and other states, trying to declare himself the winner in various states. And then last night, he gave a really remarkable address where he talked about, he opened his address last night by saying, if all the votes are counted legally, I easily win. If illegal votes are counted, then Biden might win. So what he's basically telling his supporters, what he is telling his supporters is, if I lose, that means the election was illegitimate. He's starting to use words like stolen. Last night he said the election is being stolen from me. And he's also made statements that encourage or condone violence. You probably have seen this too. At some of the vote counting locations, there have been crowds that have been showing up, and sometimes Trump supporters have been coming there with weapons. At one of these locations in Arizona, a reporter said she was threatened by a protester who was there with a weapon, who told her that he was going to find out where she lived and threatened her life. Fortunately, I haven't seen this translating into actual violence yet, but the danger is that when the president is telling his supporters, this election is being stolen from me, they will believe that. And hopefully that does not lead to any violent action, but it's something I'm following closely. So there have been a number of authoritarian warning signs in the aftermath of the election. The really important question to me, though, is what are Republican insiders going to do? As I mentioned before, the theory in How Democracies Die is that insiders can act as gatekeepers. They didn't in 2016. They didn't really in the 2020 election either. There were no sitting Republican members of Congress who endorsed Joe Biden. There were some prominent Republicans who did. Cindy McCain, for instance, Joe Walsh, a former congressman from Illinois, but no current members of Congress. The really important question to me right now will be, once a winner is declared, let's say the news outlets declare Joe Biden the winner. We don't know that yet. So I'm just, this is hypothetical. News outlets don't have the authority, by the way, of course, to legally recognize anyone as the winner. It's just it's a norm. It's a convention that they do so, that they reach conclusions based on the information they're seeing from states, and they determine when they think it's clear someone will win. They can make mistakes, of course. But let's say they announce that Biden has won, and it's clear that's the case. There's no basis for challenging that. There are clear victories in enough states that it's not in doubt. At that point, what I'll be really interested in and anxious to see as well, because I'm concerned about this, is how do Republican insiders respond if the president, I'm pretty confident the president will continue to say that the election is being stolen, to claim that it's fraudulent. What will Republican insiders do at that point? Will they tell the president he needs to accept the results, or will they encourage his beliefs? These conspiracy theories. So far, it's been kind of mixed. There are some Republicans, Senator Romney, Governor Hogan from Maryland, Congressman Kinzinger from Illinois, I believe, Senator Toomey from Pennsylvania. These are all Republicans who have said in pretty specific language that the president shouldn't be talking about fraud and stolen elections. There's not evidence of that. It's dangerous to speculate like that or to make unfounded claims. However, it's not uniform. There are some Republicans who are encouraging the president. Last night, Senator Ted Cruz from Texas and Senator Lindsey Graham from South Carolina both jumped on board with President Trump's theory that the election is being stolen from him. They used the same kind of language, and Senator Graham said he's contributing $500,000 to President Trump's legal fund to fight the election in court. So we're in a dangerous moment. I hope that I am encouraged that there are some Republicans who have spoken out in really specific terms to defend the notion of democratic elections, to say that when there's no evidence that an election is fraudulent or illegitimate, the results must be respected. That's what it means to have free and fair elections in a liberal democracy. So I'm glad that some are speaking up. What I want to see is, will more speak up? And will that be enough to, I guess, force the president to see that he has no path forward if there's no grounds for challenging the election? And so far, I have not seen any. Of course, if there are real problems with the election, they should be challenged and they should be resolved in court, but there just hasn't been any evidence of that yet. So let me stop there. I'm very interested to hear what you all think about this, or if you have questions about it or any comments you have. Oh, sorry, there may be some of the chat. Let's see. No, I don't see any there.
I have a question.
Oh, yeah, please.
So I know that you said you're looking at how Trump will handle the whole election results and things like that, and you talked about violence. Do you think that if it does get to a violent point, how will Congress handle that, and also how will the people handle that? Because I've thought about that as well. Yeah.
I mean, it's so extraordinary that we're even talking about these things, but we have to because it's a possibility, though I hope it does not happen. I think Republican members of Congress need to be acting now before it gets to the point of what you're describing that could happen. And some are. I would like to see more. If there is violence that occurs, I am confident that law enforcement will respond to it and we'll take action. We'll take appropriate action. But the really important action that could be taken is by Republican insiders now, not just in Congress. Actually, I saw a story today that Mark Meadows, the White House Chief of Staff, is feeding the president's belief about the election being stolen. So if people in the White House could kind of impress upon the president what's actually happening, that could help. Fox News, of course, can play an important role. During the campaign, because the president watches Fox News so often, Fox News anchors are, of course, know that. And it was pretty clear. Sometimes it was sort of funny. They would basically be giving debate tips to the president because they knew he was watching and they were concerned he wasn't preparing for debates. That was sort of funny, but the serious point that the serious way in which they could be effective now is, given that Fox News has the president's attention, and assuming it continues to keep it. The president was apparently angry with them for declaring that Biden had won Arizona, which I agree was too early to do. But if they continue to have his attention, it's possible people on Fox News could have an impact by rejecting these claims. And they're actually doing some of that. When the president's advisors have appeared on Fox News the last couple of days and they've talked about the election being stolen, I've seen anchors on Fox News who have said, where's the evidence? What support is there for this? So that could be useful too. But I think what I'd really like to see is that this gets headed off now and we don't get to the point you're talking about where there's actual violence. And it is incredibly disturbing that we have to consider that as a possibility. I by no means think it is inevitable. I think it can be stopped. And I hope to see more comments from Republican insiders, maybe people in the White House, though I'm less confident about that, and even people on Fox News who may have the president's ear and eyes. Let me see. I think there's some questions in the chat here. Thanks for that question. Let's see.
You're welcome.
Somebody asked, what are my thoughts on this election? The aftermath will affect elections for years to come. So that's a good question too. My own conclusion about Trump's presidency is that the constitutional system failed to respond to him. Because authoritarians, by definition, reject liberal democracy, they are an existential threat to liberal democracy. If an authoritarian comes into office and consolidates power, they can erase liberal democracy. They can replace it with an authoritarian system. Any system needs a way to defend itself from an existential threat. And the framers of the Constitution included lots of tools that Congress can use, from holding hearings, passing legislation, all the way up to impeachment and removal from office. Congress, and specifically Republican members of Congress, did not use the tools available to them to set limits on a would-be authoritarian president. I see that as constitutional failure. It doesn't mean that our liberal democracy has died. It just means to me that in a functioning system, there would have been a meaningful response. The president was impeached, but no Republicans joined in voting for impeachment in the House, and only one senator did. On a case, it was remarkable to see a number of Republican senators who voted to acquit the president did not dispute the facts. They said, well, he'll learn his lesson from it, or it would be too much of a problem for the country to remove him from office. So I think that was a failure. Regardless of what happens with this election, the United States is going to continue to have a tension between authoritarians and liberal Democrats. I actually think that's the most important divide in US politics today, not Democratic versus Republican or left-wing versus right-wing. It's people who support liberal democracy, free and fair elections, individual rights, the rule of law, independent courts, and those who don't. And I expect that to continue at least for the near future. I think there are things can be, if you prefer liberal democracy to authoritarianism, which is a subjective choice. I mean, people can choose authoritarianism. It's not my choice, but people have subjective preferences about this. If you prefer liberal democracy and you want it to survive, I think there are steps that can be taken to increase the odds in its favor. No one can ever guarantee that any system endures. But I think we can make it stronger through new statutes, maybe changes to the Constitution, and most importantly, by changes to the Republican Party. So it's possible, if the president loses this election, perhaps the Republican Party will change. Right now, it's the party of Trump. It's a party, in fact, the Republican Party had no platform for the 2020 election. They said, we're endorsing what we had in 2016, and we're making clear our support for Donald Trump. It's become a party that's focused on one particular person. If he loses and leaves the scene politically, both of which are not clear, I don't know if both or either will happen, then the question will be, will there be people in the Republican Party who move it toward liberal democracy and away from authoritarianism? That's something I'll be interested to see as well. So I appreciate that question. So do you think once Biden is declared the winner, the president will feel compelled to amp up the rhetoric? And if so, will most Republicans dig themselves deeper instead of admitting they're wrong? So, of course, no one can predict anything with certainty, but I unfortunately feel pretty confident. What I've seen from this president's track record is, and also just from the authoritarian playbook that's described in How Democracies Die, the president does not believe he can legitimately lose. He thinks the only way he can lose is if the election is stolen. I think he can't accept the idea of possibly losing. So I think if this, as things move ahead, if there's a consensus among media outlets and among political observers that the president has indeed lost, and that'll get formalized at some point, there'll be a formal count in Congress of the Electoral College votes. I do expect the president to continue his rhetoric and maybe amp it up. I think some Republicans will try to set limits. I hope it's enough. What I'm really concerned about is that some Republicans will also encourage him, as Senator Cruz and Senator Graham did last night. Senator Cotton also made statements encouraging these just baseless theories about fraud in the election. There's no evidence of it. So yeah, I think the president will continue with this. I think he may, it may get worse if he feels like he's really on the way out. One concern people have as well, obviously, is there's 2.5 months between now and January 20th. So if the president if he sees that he's lost and is going to be leaving office, what will he do at that point in that 2-month interval with the power available to him? I don't mean to be paranoid about any of this. I think it's rather unlikely, and that may be even too conservative a statement. It's rather unlikely that anything the president does or his supporters in Congress can overturn the result of an election or allow the president to remain in office. I do not think that's likely, but I do think there are lots of dangerous things that can happen as the president continues to tell his supporters the election's been stolen from him. And unfortunately, I just don't see any reason to think that he will move away from that. I hope I'm wrong about that, but I think we've probably learned from this point about this president. This is who he is. I expect that he will continue to do that and maybe even amp it up, as you say. Oh, so this is related. Next question is related to this point. Typically, the losing candidate makes a concession speech. Right. It's not legally required, but usually in elections, whoever's lost makes a concession speech, or at least calls their opponent to congratulate them. However, Donald Trump has indicated he'd refuse to concede no matter the results. Yeah, I've heard reporting on that too, and it's very difficult to imagine him giving a concession speech or even calling former Vice President Biden if Biden's declared the winner. What are some potential consequences of an incumbent president refusing to concede an election he clearly did not win? Another excellent question. One of the problems that scholars write about with Donald Trump's presidency, and some of this predates Trump as well. Donald Trump didn't create this environment from scratch in 2016. It had been building for decades. But one of the points that scholars make is that President Trump has violated lots of norms that we used to take for granted. Not laws, but just customs that, for instance, presidential candidates make their tax returns public. It's not legally required, but every candidate's done that since Carter, I think, the mid-1970s. That presidents don't have business interests while they're in office. President Carter had a peanut farm. He sold it. Presidents Obama and George W. Bush put their stock holdings into an outside advisor's hands so they wouldn't know what stock they held. This president has a hotel a couple blocks from the White House where foreign dignitaries stay and pay money that goes into his pocket. When he visits his resorts, his golf clubs, and the Secret Service goes with him, they pay to use the facilities. And so the president is getting paid by taxpayers when he goes to his resorts and golf courses. So many of these things we took for granted. Presidents don't call for their opponents to be put in jail. Presidents don't engage in bullying over social media of political opponents. A lot of those norms have been violated. This is one more that I expect will be violated. Presidents making a concession speech. I think all of these things are dangerous and corrosive. One of the things that they write about, one of the examples they give in How Democracies Die, in the book I mentioned before, is Chile in the early 1970s. And they describe what they call, the authors, by the way, I'm not a fatalist. I'm not pessimistic about this. I'm just offering this as one reason why I think people should take this seriously. They described what they saw as a death spiral in liberal democracy in Chile. A socialist president was elected in 1970. the center-right opposition party, which controlled the legislature, decided that they would refuse to allow him to, in their words, score a single goal, not gain any legislative achievements. The president responded by trying to find unilateral ways to get around Congress. There was a back and forth, and it culminated in a military coup. I do not expect that in the United States. My point is simply that when these norms are violated, norms that are important for constitutional democracy, like presidents divesting themselves of their business interests, or being transparent about their taxes and finances, or not referring to the press as the enemy of the people. A lot of norms we don't notice until they're violated. Nobody would have thought, oh, it's a norm for the president not to call the press the enemy of the people. We only noticed it when it was violated, because it's so unusual. This is, again, an indication that the system is in a lot of trouble. If actually, my ultimate conclusion is that what's needed in the United States is a new constitution, one that can be both more democratic, make sure that elections are won by people who win a majority of the vote. Right now, there are a lot of ways in our system that you can win office without getting a majority in the vote. Gerrymandered House districts, the Electoral College, equal voting rights for states in the US Senate. So I think the system needs to be more.
It appears Chris's connection froze. He should be joining us back soon. He just has to click on that link. So we'll give it a second here from him to join back with us. Sorry about that. Hello, Jennifer. We're keeping our eyes out for Chris. It looks like his connection just interrupted. He froze. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I see him.
Here he is. He's connecting again, so we'll let him in and keep it moving.
We're good. We'll get there. Thank you so much.
Oh, there we go. I'm sorry about that. Something seemed to have happened on my connection. So the question was asked about the president not giving a concession speech or even calling former Vice President Biden, if he does win, is not illegal, but it would be another reason, I think, to be concerned. And here's why specifically I'd be concerned. I gave the example in Chile. Once a major political party abandons norms that are important for constitutional democracy. The authors of How Democracies Die mentioned two in particular. Mutual toleration, the idea that your political opponents are not your enemies. They are legitimate rivals for power who should be treated with respect. You don't call for them to be put in jail. They're people you disagree with about policy. And then forbearance. Forbearance is the idea that just because you have power, you shouldn't always use it. The House of Representatives could impeach the president every day and every cabinet secretary every day if they wanted. It wouldn't be illegal. It would violate a norm. When norms are violated that are central to constitutional democracy, like something as simple as giving a concession speech or calling an opponent to congratulate them, that's a really important norm because it shows that both sides accept the legitimacy of the democratic process. So when that norm is broken, the problem is, will other politicians follow that lead? Will people see this as a new norm? It's no longer necessary to give concession speeches. It's no longer necessary to see the other side as legitimate. So let's say the president does lose and does leave office. What comes next? Does the Republican Party continue to be a party of Trump, where perhaps the president seeks re-election himself? There's some talk that he could run again in 2024, or one of his children could. Or some scholars talk about the idea of a Trump 2.0, another politician with a similar authoritarian ambition who seeks, who kind of rises to the top of the Republican Party. That's one way things could go, that Trump's approach could become an accepted approach for Republicans and maybe for Democrats too. Authoritarianism is not confined to one side of the political aisle. There can be left-wing and right-wing authoritarians. So it's possible that Democrats, in fact, I've seen some evidence of this already, might decide similarly, we don't have to follow these norms of civility and accepting our opponents as legitimate. We can describe them as enemies, and we can, that could be useful to us. Donald Trump won election one time by doing that, at least. So that's an important question. And what I hope will happen is that if the president loses, the Republican Party will change. The Republican Party will reject this authoritarian approach and will become a different kind of party. The party it was, the Republican Party of the pre-Newt Gingrich days of the 1980s, a Republican Party that supports liberal democracy, that understands that Democrats are not enemies. They're people that disagree with them on policy grounds. But history is contingent. We don't know what's going to happen next. And we're in a dangerous moment right now in terms of what happens with the election results and the president's response to the election results. But we're even assuming all of that goes smoothly, whatever the outcome is. The bigger question, as you suggest in your question, is will the Republican Party move away from, will no longer be the Trump party? Will it move in a different direction? Or will there be a new kind of would-be authoritarian to step up? And will that also come from the Democratic side? I hope not. It's an opportunity to restore these norms that help support liberal democracy, but it will take a lot of work to do that. Are any other questions that people have? Oh, let's see. I read a piece by Ryan Skinnell where he contends that demagogues use democracy against itself. Absolutely right. Yes. Demagogues do use democracy against itself. They know that they can violate norms and the other side probably won't respond in kind. For instance, President Trump is bringing legal challenges there's no obvious basis for legal challenges, but he's filing lawsuits in cases where the result is close and he lost. He's able to do that because he knows that Joe Biden's not going to do the same thing. If Donald Trump can use these legal tools available to him in not the manner they were intended to be used, and while knowing that the other side will not follow suit. And as you also mentioned, a Trump official just released a statement claiming the American people deserve transparency. Yeah, that's a good example too. So would-be authoritarians will often hold the other side to a different standard. They will say, you're not following the rules, you're not doing these things the right way, even while they know that they reject the idea that rules apply to them. But often they will charge their opponents of doing the things that they're doing. There's no indication that there hasn't been transparency. Some of the voting center sites actually have live web feeds, their cameras where you can watch what they're doing. And at all the voting locations, the vote counting locations, there are observers from both the Republican and Democratic Party. This is just not true. But that is an example of using democracy against itself. In a liberal democracy, people are free to say what they want. The president can call the press the enemy of the people. He can call for his opponents to be put in jail. It's only a norm that he doesn't do that. So what differentiates authoritarians from liberal Democrats in this context is that authoritarians will not exercise forbearance, voluntary self-restraint. And it's very difficult to know how to respond to that. I think it's a mistake to respond in kind. I don't think anyone, Democratic or Republican, should be calling the press the enemy of the people or calling for their opponents to be put in jail. But it's difficult to know how to respond to that. What do you do when one side is not playing by the rules? Some people think, well, then you should abandon the rules yourself. I don't agree, but I think it is complicated. I think it really starts with making changes to the Republican Party. Let's see, what kinds of actions can Democrats take to limit and put effective control, checks on executive power if they don't have control of the Senate? Yeah, I mean, this is an important question. So I don't know if this is what you meant by your question, but I think it will be essential for Democrats to set limits on a President Biden, if there is a President Biden. These rules, liberal democracy's rules, apply to everyone. And if one problem, I wrote about this during the Obama administration, there was a very famous law professor, the dean of Yale Law School, who had written books and articles defending liberal democracy, arguing that presidents should be held accountable, shouldn't be able to avoid the rule of law. He served, when Obama won election, this law professor served in the Obama administration, and he totally changed course. He advocated for broad executive power, removing limits on presidential power in the context of using military force. I think it's essential to be consistent. If there are problems from a Biden presidency, if there is a Biden presidency, they have to be identified, and members of Congress, Democrats would play an important role. And it doesn't matter they don't have control of the Senate in that case. They could join with Republicans to set limits on or to hold a Biden administration accountable. So I think there are ways to do that, but it will be important for Democrats to be able to put aside partisan concerns in this context. They will have to recognize, if we believe in liberal democracy, if we believe in limits on power, it has to apply to all presidents, not just would-be authoritarians and not just Republicans, to Democrats as well. Let's see. Someone says, should Biden choose not to run in 2024? Should a more progressive Democrat challenge Kamala Harris in the primary? That's not really my area of expertise. It's hard for me to say about that. My own personal view would be, let's wait to see how this works out before we get to that question of who's running in 2024. Let's see, another question. I almost feel like in this day and age, some extreme Trump supporters consider values of the earlier Republican Party as realigned to be considered centrist in our current political landscape. And now even centrists are called socialists, among other name calling. I wonder how you think this phenomenon is going to impact the ability of the Republican Party to abandon ideals of being considered the Trump Party and return to their previous values. Yes, of course, this is a big problem. There has been an asymmetric polarization. The parties realigned after 1965. Southern Democrats who were committed to racial segregation became Republicans, and Northern liberal Republicans became Democrats. But the polarization, the parties did move more toward their poles. The Democratic Party moved more toward the left, the Republican Party moved more toward the right, but not symmetrically. The Republican Party has moved more to the right than the Democratic Party moved to the left. There's been no equivalent to a Newt Gingrich or Donald Trump, for that matter, in the Democratic Party. So you're right. That does create a problem. That it makes it hard to accurately describe the current landscape. A lot of observers in the media and in academics too, this is something I feel a tension about, is people don't want to be seen as taking sides. So often they will say, on the one hand, Republicans say this, on the other hand, Democrats say that. So what that means is that if you're in one of the two major parties, you can take any position you want, and it can't be seen as too extreme to be covered because there's only two parties and both parties should be recognized as legitimate. That does create a problem. I think you're right. I don't see it so much as a right versus left problem right now in the Republican Party, more so authoritarian versus liberal democracy. That does make it difficult. It makes it, I really have no good answer on reaching Trump supporters. One thing I've been very concerned about recently, have people heard about the QAnon conspiracy theories? QAnon it's a set of conspiracy theories. I can't even say all of it because it's really grotesque, but part of it involves a baseless theory that, people are saying, yes, they've heard about it, good. I'm sorry you've had to hear about it, but QAnon is insane. Somebody says, yes. The core idea of QAnon is that Democratic Party insiders, including Hillary Clinton and Hollywood celebrities, engage in child trafficking and sexual abuse of children and harvest their blood. I'm sorry to have to describe this. That's part of the belief culture. They also believe that there's a war going on between the deep state, which the deep state is part of this child trafficking conspiracy, and Donald Trump, who's fighting against the deep state. I don't know how many people have these beliefs, but it's clearly a significant amount. There was at least one new member of Congress, Marjorie Taylor Greene, who was elected from Georgia, who is a QAnon supporter. This makes it even more difficult. If you're talking about changing a political party and making it reject authoritarianism, what happens if that party has been taken over by conspiracy theorists? Some Republicans reject this, and that's Senator Romney, when at the second debate, the town hall event where the former vice president had separate town hall events, President Trump was asked about QAnon. Savannah Guthrie, the moderator, said, will you reject QAnon's conspiracy theories about Democrats attacking children? The president didn't reject it. He said, I don't know much about them, but what I do know is that they're opposed to child trafficking. That's a good thing. Part of many QAnon supporters believe that Trump himself is Q, the person who posts on the internet these conspiracy theories, and they took this as confirmation. So we're in a very difficult place right now, where this has become part of our political culture. The best way to respond to this is what Senator Romney did, I think. After that debate or the town hall event where President Trump gave kind of encouraging words to QAnon, Senator Romney put out a statement. He said, this is dangerous. The president should not be encouraging these kind of conspiracy theories. That will be the really big question to me. Are there enough Republicans like Senator Romney who can change the direction of the party? And I don't know what the answer to that is. I think that will really be centrally important to determining which direction the country goes, whether President Trump remains in office or not. If the Republican Party remains a Trump party, a party rejecting liberal democracy, eventually Republicans will win again. There are only two major parties in the United States. They will eventually win again. And if they win again with another would-be authoritarian, that, of course, would be very dangerous. Let's see, any other questions? I see a lot of people responding to the QAnon stuff, which I'm glad. There's been polling on that. I've seen only about a quarter of Americans know what QAnon is, and I think it's important for people to know about that, so I'm glad you do. Let's see. And stop me if I'm going over time-wise, but I see another question here. I feel since John McCain was attacked by Trump for being captured, those more moderate or principled Republicans are being shut out, as someone else said. Yes, so as I mentioned before, one of the methods that would-be authoritarians use is to knock out star players, people who are political opponents or critics, and that can mean people in their own party. And President Trump has done that very effectively. There were two senators, Senator Corker from Tennessee and Senator Flake from Arizona, who were critical of President Trump. They resigned. They retired. They didn't run for re-election in the Senate because the president was going to support a primary challenge. A member of the House from South Carolina, Mark Sanford, was another Trump critic. He got a primary challenge and he lost. So yes, it's been harder for these more moderate Republicans, or really not even, I wouldn't even say it as more moderate, Republicans committed to liberal democracy. You can be conservative committed to liberal democracy. In fact, one of the strongest advocates of liberal democracy I've seen in the last few years is a former congressman named Joe Walsh. Joe Walsh is so conservative that in 2016 on election day, in fact, this sort of goes beyond conservatism, but it shows how much he's changed. On election day in 2016, he said, I'm voting for Donald Trump. If he loses, I'm picking up a musket. Who's with me? All right, that's a pretty diehard Trump supporter, it seems like. Joe Walsh emerged as one of the sharpest conservative critics of President Trump's because after President Trump took office, Joe Walsh concluded that the president was seeking to undermine liberal democracy. And Joe Walsh said, even though I'm conservative, I value liberal democracy over partisan differences. So it's harder for Republicans who support liberal democracy to have a voice in the Republican Party today because it's become so centered on Trump the individual. That'll be a big question going forward, whether there are enough who can make their voices heard and change the party. So I appreciate all the questions. Very good questions. I appreciate the knowledge of QAnon too. Thanks very much for taking the time to talk to me about this. And if people have more questions, feel free to contact me. It's very nice to see everyone. Thanks.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you
for being with us so much.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're muted.
They reminded me I'm talking to myself. How many times do we say that? Is everybody with us? We're going to slide right into this last session. We know it's very important. Focus is going to be merit aid allocation and, of course, most importantly, open Q&A. I do want to just offer a bit of a caveat before we jump in, is that it is important in this forum that you don't reach out and ask about your personal circumstance. We wouldn't want to share that in an open forum, but absolutely, if you want to inquire individually afterward, I am always available, spagrad@american.edu, or you can reach out to me individually. Happy to answer questions about, again, you individually. And before I turn it over to Allison, I just want to talk through a bit of process and timelines, which is what our operation, the graduate enrollment operation, manages. So those of you that met the priority deadline of November 1 for spring 2021, the merit aid review process has begun and is ongoing. And we do hope, because it's a short timeline, to be making decisions and finishing those up very, very soon. For those of you that have been admitted for fall 2021, you've obviously met the priority deadline, which is February 15th, 2021. But please know that the decisions are independent and distinct, in that there's an admission decision. You've received that communication. We will not begin our merit aid review process until after the priority deadline of February 15th. It would not be fair. We want to make sure that all students that will be in that pool will be able to apply, get their decisions as far as admission, and then we will present the candidates for fall 2021 to Dr. Jachnowitz for review for merit aid. Next, I want to share, as I mentioned in the beginning of our day, it is very important that you understand cost of attendance, and that you have hold of what that is for your individual degrees. And as you know, at SBA, there's various credit hours associated with each of our master's degrees. So make sure that if you need assistance calculating what that is, again, I am happy to help, but that is a very important place to start when you start talking about financing a graduate degree. After cost of attendance, then you start talking about the tools of financing your graduate education. Those of you that are domestic students should be submitting a FAFSA if you are admitted to our Office of Financial Aid to learn of your federal loan eligibility. And I know what you're saying. I don't want to take out loans. I'm going to be very honest with you. It is very rare that a graduate student, especially a professional degree student, would not have to consider seriously taking some federal loan money to help offset the cost of tuition and fees and some of their living expenses. So please make sure that you take that step. At the very least, you should learn of what your eligibility is. And please know that's what's associated with the word need at the graduate level. We all believe that you need money. We all graduate students, absolutely. We understand, we believe it. Higher education costs way too much. But please know at the graduate level, it is not about need. We are not trained to assess that. That is based on a FAFSA. It goes to the Office of Financial Aid outside of the School of Public Affairs. We do not see that information. The tool that you're here joining us about today is about merit. And if you step back from that word, it's very important that you grasp the meaning of merit. It is the strength of your application file that warrants review by Dr. Jachnowitz, and then ultimately, as she describes the tools, investment with Merit Aid. So it's all about merit, not need. Finally, please remember the tool of you. YOU, and I mean that. You've heard a lot today from us and from our students about how all of our students are able to work concurrently to going to school. And so you do have the ability, which is a great advantage in DC, to have some income. And perhaps at the beginning, it's not a lot, but it's enough to buy some groceries and maybe help with some rent. But as you move into your second year, many of our students take full-time positions with salary and benefits. So the U bucket tool is very important and should be an advantage when you think about making the decision to join us. So again, 3 buckets: federal or federal loan money via FAFSA, the U bucket, and now as I transition it to Dr. Jachnowitz, the bucket called merit. So with that, Allison, do you want to share some more about strategy?
Yes, thank you. So in terms of Merit Aid, we have 3 main forms of Merit Aid that we give out. The 3 forms are tuition remission, graduate assistantship, and then donor funded scholarships. So let me talk about each one of them. So our most prevalent form of aid is tuition remission, and it comes in a dollar amount and essentially is money that we put onto your account to cover part of your tuition. So a commonly given amount is probably $5,000. And so that means that per semester, you would get $5,000 credited to your account to cover tuition remission. So this is money that you would not need to pay to American University. The second main form is graduate assistantship. And these are given less frequently than tuition remission. And these involve the student working for a faculty member or for a staff at a center, either 10 or 20 hours per week. And in recognition of that work, the student will get paid a stipend. And that stipend doesn't go towards tuition, it is deposited into your checking account. So these are funds that can be used to pay for rent or to pay for other necessities. I should say a question I often get is, well, okay, if I get an assistantship and I want to move forward with it, am I allowed to leave it eventually? Do I have to take it? And the answer is no. So the tuition remission and the GA-ship are separable awards. So you can accept the tuition remission and not the GA-ship. We definitely see a lot of students that accept the GA-ship for their first year and then decline it in the year when they're more familiar with DC and potentially have found an internship or a job that is more interesting to them or pays better. So you can decline the GA-ship, and you can do that really at any time. We just ask that you give us and your supervisor 2 weeks notice so that they can plan. The third bucket of aid are donor-funded scholarships. And these are merit-based, but also often do have other criteria set by the donors. So they might be interested in a student who has interest in being in the foreign public service, or a student that is interested in a federal government career, or a student that is interested in workers' rights. And so we have to meet, when we're giving these out, the donor's needs as well. These typically are used by students as tuition remission, so they're put onto your accounts and are applied to tuition. In rare cases, they can also be used for living expenses if your tuition is already covered another way. And so those are our three main buckets. Again, the most frequent form of aid is the tuition remission. I would say then the GA-ship, and then the donor-funded scholarship. In terms of notification, you would hear from the admissions office about merit aid in terms of tuition remission and the GA-ship. You would hear from the graduate studies office in terms of donor-funded scholarships. So they're separate notification processes. So I just wanted to mention that as well.
Allison, can you speak to the flexibility of how you approach merit aid?
Yeah, so there we give merit aid in a very flexible manner. And I mentioned in one way, you can decline the GA-ship, or you can take it and then decline it later in your career. Another way that we're flexible is that you can use it for part-time or full-time study. So if you've received a merit aid award, or you will, you'll see that there is a full-time award amount and a part-time award amount. So if you go to school full-time, you get one award amount, and then if you go part-time, you get a second award amount, which is traditionally lower. To compensate for the fact that if you're going part-time and you get a lower award, what we've decided to do is extend the length of the award for part-time students. So if you go part-time all 4 semesters and you get the part-time aid amount for 4 semesters, you will get a 5th semester of aid at the part-time amount. And so this is to really make sure that our part-time students get as much support as our full-time students. We're also flexible in that you don't need to declare to us whether you're going full-time or part-time in the beginning of your program. So essentially what we will do every semester is audit your enrollment. And if you're full-time, you get the full-time amount. If you're part-time, you get the part-time amount. We do not ask you to pick a status at the beginning of your study and then stick with it. So we often see students going in and out of part-time enrollment, depending upon what's going on in other areas of their lives. The only downside of this is that if you have a mix of full-time and part-time enrollment, you do not get the 5th semester of funding for if you're part-time for all 4 semesters. So that's the only thing to be mindful of.
First question, good question for everyone. Full-time, as we're referencing full and part-time related to merit aid.
Yeah, so we've changed the definition of full-time related to merit aid for SPA students. And so we are now defining full-time as 7 credits or more. So this could be 2 3-credit classes and a SAMI class, or this could be a one of the 4-credit institutes and a 3-credit class. So full-time is 7 credits or more, part-time is 6 credits. So those are the definitions that we use for merit aid and SPA. Changing it, reducing what full-time definition from 9 to 7 has really helped the students because some of our degrees don't require that students study full-time in every semester. And so this allows students to be full-time for merit aid purposes in all 4 semesters of their study. I see there was a question to me about, is there a separate application process? There's not a separate application process for any of our merit aid. So once you submit your application for admission, you will then be considered for tuition remission, graduate assistantship opportunities, and also donor scholarships. So we don't ask you to do any extra work.
The chat box is open. If you'd like to advance some questions, I'll kind of triage for Allison and try to group questions. Questions about how merit is determined. What are the factors that are looked at?
So I think the main factors are your undergraduate GPA, your undergraduate institution, and also your major. So basically, how strong is your transcript? If you have GREs, we will look at those. But as everyone knows, we're not requiring GREs for spring 2021 or fall 2021. And then the other thing we'll look at is, especially for the donor funded scholarships, so we're going to look at your essays and also your resumes to see what you're interested in and what your experience is.
I'm going to respond, and Eva, I don't know if it's Eva or Ava, but I will share with you that our admissions process is indeed rolling. So we will continue to admit students all the way up until a cohort is full. And there was a question advanced by one of our guests about when does that happen? And most often we can always make room for students, but if SPA is the place you want to land, we encourage you to make the decision and not push it too long. Perhaps now is an important time for spring 2021 students that receive a Merit Aid award from SPA. Your decision timeline for both admissions and Merit Aid acceptance is December 1, and that will be detailed clearly. For those admitted for fall 2021, and if you would receive a Merit Aid award, your decision timeline would be April 15th to render your final decision for admissions and to accept our Merit Aid award offer.
And we're constantly giving out Merit Aid. So it's done on a rolling basis. If you haven't heard and you're interested, I would definitely reach out to Jennifer and ask her where you are in the review process.
Allison, if a student took a large variety of classes and changed their mind, maybe as an undergraduate, changed their major and so forth, is that a negative indicator?
No, not at all. And as somebody who had, I think, 5 undergraduate majors, where we don't look down on that at all.
And Trevor, I hope you heard, you are welcome to reach out. We do pride ourselves in being incredibly transparent. We know this is a very important subject, money, financing your degree. So we are not, please don't be shy. Reach out. We'll give you the answer. You may not always like the answer, but we will be very transparent about the process. No secrets at all. What are the considerations around applying without a GRE? Maybe Allison, you could speak to what the admission committee might look at. And is there advantage given to applications that do indeed, even though we're waiving, include GREs?
No, there's no advantage given to students that have a GRE. I think if you have a strong undergraduate background and transcript, I think, being without the GRE is going to be completely fine. The only time that I might say it might help you a little bit to have the GRE is that if your undergraduate background is a bit on the weaker side, the GRE could help you in Merit Aid decisions, but that's something that you can even reach out about and ask, do you think it would make sense for me to take the GRE? but really it's a neutral. If you don't have it, it's a neutral factor.
We have a quick question about our dual degrees. We do offer a number of dual degrees with the Washington College of Law. The question is around the admission process. So if you don't mind, it is a bit, it's not a complicated process, but if you want to reach out to me, I can talk through that process with you so we don't have to get in those weeds here. But I can talk through timeline and that process for you, and even talk about the timing again for review of Merit Aid. What do fall 2021 applicants, when do they normally hear back regarding Merit Aid awards? Again, fall 2021.
So I think they will, you all will typically hear probably beginning of late February, beginning of March about Merit Aid. So after the priority deadline for the fall 2021 semester.
Question about how big our cohorts are. And I will say, I think it's Brianna, that varies according to spring and fall. So I don't know which term you're admitted to. But maybe Allison, if you want to speak to fall cohorts.
So in terms of fall, we typically have 60 MPA and MPP students. I would say probably about 20 students in all of the other programs, not combined, but each. And then 2 of our programs, data science and political communication, are joint with other schools in the university. So those programs, if you take into account, both schools will be bigger than the 20 I mentioned.
Right. Question about, and Tessa, I'm glad you brought it up. I hope many of you have learned, since you're already admitted, most of you, we do offer some application coaching sessions. You should probably be past that point if you're admitted, but you can find those dates on our recruitment events page. And Tessa, I will follow up with you. I'm sorry, it's been a crazy week. This said, those of you that are admitted, remember I've mentioned we've got a number of initiatives coming up for you. And that email is being released next week. I do hope you'll continue to engage. The career starts, how to finance a graduate degree. We're holding monthly Q&A sessions called Ask Me sessions. Those that receive a Merit Aid Award will have a session with Allison about the Merit Aid Award and terms and conditions. So we really are out in front trying to get this information to you. So please register for those. We are recording the sessions. We've had that question. We will absolutely share recordings of the sessions for those of you that have been very patient with us. Question, Allison, does the Merit Aid letter notice come separate from the admission notification?
Yes, typically, yes. Yep. Typically, you'll hear from admission on admissions much faster than you will hear on Merit Aid. In terms of Merit Aid for individuals who graduated many years ago, we would take into account more also your work experience. So that would get weighted a bit heavier than the undergraduate transcript.
Great, all wonderful questions. Other things? I see Emily did drop in the application coaching sessions if you're interested in those. Anything else for the good of the order regarding Merit Aid? Okay, well, we hope that you found the information that we've offered throughout the agenda substantive, but if we have missed anything, I hope we've made it clear that all of us stand ready to answer your questions, interact with you individually. You want a phone call, Zoom session, via whatever you need, we're happy to do so. We are getting ready to transition now to the optional degree program breakouts, and maybe Allison, you want to give a little context about what they should expect in those sessions?
Yeah, so the program directors and the graduate advisors are going to be leading these sessions. So these are the sessions when you'll get a little bit more in depth on curriculum for the programs and objectives for the programs and hear more about specific classes. And so this would be a good chance to ask about any types of curriculum questions that you have, or questions about, what faculty teach classes, etc. These would be the great resources for you on those questions.
Fantastic. Well, we're right on time. On behalf of the entire SBA community, we thank every one of you for your investment of time and energy. We appreciate you considering us, and there's nothing more we'd like to do than to welcome you to the SBA community, either this spring or next fall. So with that, so long to everyone, and I hope we see many of you on the other side. I know I'm going to jump into a session. Remember, you have a separate Zoom link, so you'll need to step out of this general session and then log back in to the relevant degree program breakout. Have a wonderful afternoon and great weekend.
Thank you. Have a great weekend.